Welcome to Wife Cheating Story. I hope you have an enjoyable and relaxing time listening. Let's get started.
Shadows cling to every corner, whispering secrets I was never meant to hear. Her late-night phone calls, that black sedan out front, none of it adds up. Shattered trust bleeds through the floorboards, and I can't look at our daughter's smile without feeling guilt. A soldier can handle war zones, but coming back to this betrayal stings deeper than bullets. Yesterday's court hearing shattered my last illusions. My once-loving wife just blindsided me with divorce papers. Every glance from her is ice, every word a ticking bomb. People say I'm overreacting. Maybe I'm just starting. This is my story, my cruel plan for revenge. Before we begin, let me know where you're tuning in from down in the comments. And if you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next tale. I got home on a Monday morning, the sun barely peeking over the rows of suburban houses. My duffel bag, still stamped with my old Army unit's emblem, felt heavier than I remembered. I suppose the real weight wasn't the gear inside, but the questions swirling in my mind. Would Denise be happy to see me? Would life finally feel normal? Denise, my wife of just over a year, opened the front door with a polite smile that stopped short of genuine warmth. It struck me that she looked different, her hair lighter, her eyes ringed by slight shadows as if she hadn't been sleeping well. I kissed her cheek. She told me, "Welcome home, Jason," and then stepped aside so I could walk into the house. Her tone was pleasant, but there was an uneasy distance to it, like we were acquaintances making small talk in a dentist's waiting room. I tried not to dwell on that first impression. After all, transitions can be awkward. I'd been gone on extended military duty for months, hoping to secure a stable foundation for us. I walked through the living room, noticing the furniture was rearranged. The big couch was up against the window, and a newly purchased coffee table sat near the TV. I forced a grin, telling her the place looked great. Denise shrugged, saying, "Yeah, I tried something new. Felt we needed a change." She looked at her phone, then put it down. "You hungry?" We headed into the kitchen for breakfast. She'd prepared scrambled eggs, bacon, and toast, simple but thoughtful. We ate quietly. In between cautious glances, I asked about her job. She was still bartending at the Cold Creek Tavern, she said, taking more shifts. "They increased my hours," Denise mentioned, wiping her mouth. "You know, bills don't pay themselves." The way she said it, with that subdued edge, planted the first seeds of tension. My chest tightened. Had I left her drowning in responsibilities alone? After breakfast, I surveyed the house. Everything was tidy to the point of sterility. Even our daughter Sophia's room looked like it had been scrubbed free of any chaos that usually came with a toddler. Sophia was spending the morning at my mother-in-law's place, apparently. "I figured we'd have some alone time," Denise explained. Her face was unreadable. I couldn't tell if she truly wanted time with me or just wanted to break news before the baby got back. When I made a quick trip to the bedroom, our bedroom, I noticed subtle changes there, too. New bed sheets I didn't recognize, a faint smell of scented candles. It all felt off. On my nightstand, I found an old letter from me pinned under a pink notepad. The letter was personal, from the desert, my longing for home spelled out in anxious handwriting. Seeing how it was half buried made me swallow a fresh pang of regret. I should have never let that distance grow in the first place. The day wore on in stilted politeness. Denise asked me about my deployment. I gave her short answers. Our conversation felt off-key, like we were each missing the other's tune. I tried telling her about the men in my squad, about a friend who'd lost a leg, about the missions we'd run. Her eyes flickered with concern, but she quickly changed the subject. "You must be exhausted," she said, standing up to clear the table. "Why don't you rest?" I took a shower, letting warm water run over my shoulders. My reflection in the mirror looked older, fine lines near my eyes, hair a bit thinner. My thoughts spiraled. Maybe I'm just not the man she remembers. Fear gnawed at me because something deeper was off. But what exactly? Sophia came home around noon. She was all giggles and outstretched arms, lighting the house with her bright curiosity. Seeing her reminded me what I'd been fighting for. I scooped her up, peppering her forehead with kisses. Denise watched from the corner, her expression softening for a second as though she recalled we used to be a loving family. Then her phone chimed, and she disappeared to answer it. Little hints continued piling up that day, muttered phone calls, The way she wouldn't quite meet my eyes, a new phone number in our landline records I didn't recognize. Maybe I was paranoid. Or maybe, fresh back from a conflict zone, my nerves were hyper-vigilant. But I felt something else, betrayal lurking in the corners of our house. That evening, after Sophia went down for a nap, I tried bridging the gap. We should plan a date night, I suggested, brushing a stray hair off Denise's shoulder. She hesitated. A date night? I'm not sure I can get time off this week. My schedule's crazy. She picked at her fingernails. How about next month? Next month? We hadn't seen each other for so long, but she was pushing it forward. My insides twisted, a swirl of disappointment that manifested as a tight smile. Sure, next month. She left for the tavern not long after, citing a coworker's emergency that required shift coverage. I found myself alone in our living room, my duffel bag still half unpacked, pictures of us on the mantle from happier days. In one photo, I'm in uniform, she's wearing a bright sundress, and we're both beaming. Where did those people go? That night, I barely slept. My mind kept replaying the stiffness in her eyes and voice. Memories of our whirlwind courtship replayed next. How certain I'd been that our love could endure anything. I reminded myself we had a daughter, an anchor, a reason to keep trying. But seeds of tension were now planted, rooting themselves deeper every hour. When she finally came home around 2 a.m., I pretended to be asleep. I heard her rummaging in the kitchen, opening the fridge, talking quietly on the phone. Her voice hushed but urgent. I couldn't make out exact words, but I caught my name once, maybe twice. I kept still, heart thudding as though I were on watch duty again. She eventually slipped into bed, facing away from me. I stared at the dark ceiling. Something's wrong. The question was, did I have the courage to face it head on, or would I keep ignoring the signs? Silence was safer, but my mind was done ignoring the red flags. The only certainty was that my homecoming wasn't the joyous reunion I dreamed of. Instead, I realized I might be stepping into an entirely new battle, one fought in the shadows of my own house. And in this war, the lines between friend and foe were disturbingly blurred. Morning came with an edge of tension still lingering from the night before. Denise was awake early, rummaging around for her car keys. She waved a vague goodbye before rushing out the door, muttering something about extra errands. Our daughter, Sophia, tugged at my leg, wanting cereal and cartoons. I made her breakfast and tried to push last night's concerns to the back of my mind. I planned to re-enroll in college courses soon. I still had GI Bill benefits left. But the pit in my stomach told me that if Denise and I didn't fix whatever was happening, no class schedule was going to matter. Around 9, I got a phone call from an old Army buddy, Trent Donovan. He asked if I wanted to hang out sometime. He'd left the service too and was working as a volunteer baseball coach at a local park. I made a mental note. Coaching for extra income? Could be something. I wasn't sure, but it sounded more appealing than bartending or security guard gigs. When I flipped open our monthly bills, my jaw nearly locked. The power bill was overdue, the credit card statement was sky high, and the mortgage was behind. My initial reaction was confusion. I sent money from my deployment. Where did it go? The amounts I had regularly wired back home should have covered basics. I set aside the statements, trying to quell the anger rising in my chest. Maybe I should wait to talk to Denise. Maybe there were logical explanations. Yet as I tallied the numbers, it got harder to ignore that large sums were unaccounted for. Could she have gotten a new car? Or was she gambling? I didn't know. I just saw that for every deposit I'd made, the expenses somehow ballooned. Sophia's laughter broke my dark thoughts. We spent an hour playing with her blocks, building a crooked tower, then demolishing it to squeals of delight. She was the reason I needed to keep my head on straight. My mission now was making sure we all survived financially. That paternal instinct, my daughter's well-being, was the only thing stopping me from driving to the tavern to confront Denise right then. By mid-afternoon, I decided to do a quick check at the community college. If I were to juggle night shifts plus college, I wanted details. The campus bustled with students, and I felt slightly out of place in my battered Army jacket. While I waited to speak with an advisor, I scrolled through my phone's contact list. Denise had texted me earlier, hanging with a friend after errands. Don't wait up. That uneasy feeling churned in my gut again. The text was so casual, so dismissive. I met with the advisor, who suggested I start classes in a couple of weeks, part-time, enough to keep my benefits valid. The notion of diving into something normal, like continuing my education, was appealing. By the time I left the campus, though, I still felt that tension lurking in the background. What if all this planning is pointless if my marriage is collapsing? Later, I picked Sophia up from my neighbor's house. Mrs. Rowan was a kind older woman who adored kids. She told me in a hushed voice, "Denise hasn't been around much. I've seen her come home real late sometimes." She looked uncomfortable sharing this, but her concern was obvious. Had Denise really changed that drastically since I left? I made dinner for Sophia, mac and cheese. Halfway through feeding her, I got a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, there was silence, then a hang-up. My nerves pricked. I recalled seeing a new phone number in the landline logs earlier. Was this the same one? I glanced at Sophia, trying to quell the sense that someone was messing with me. Denise rolled in at about 8 p.m., wearing a fancy blouse and carrying a shopping bag that reeked of new clothes. My frustration surged. I tried to keep my voice calm. "Hey, I've been meaning to talk about these bills. They're piling up. Where's all our money gone?" She frowned, avoiding my gaze. "What money? The small amounts you sent?" "Jason, it barely covered the mortgage. I had to pay for Sophia's daycare, my expenses, groceries, stuff adds up." I gestured to the unopened credit card statements on the counter. "We're behind on everything. According to my calculations, there's a big gap we can't account for." Denise's lip curled in annoyance. "I'm not an accountant, okay? I've been working my tail off to keep afloat. Why can't you trust that I did my best?" I wanted to push further, but her sharp tone made me pause. We were heading for an argument while Sophia toddled around, trying to show off her coloring book. That parental reflex kicked in. I didn't want to upset her. "We'll figure it out," I muttered. "Great," Denise replied, rolling her eyes. "Figure it out." She scooped Sophia up for a quick hug, ignoring the tension in the room. Then she retreated to the bedroom, leaving me feeling like an intruder in my own home. A few minutes later, she slammed the door. I just stood there, fists tightening. She used to confide in me about every little detail, but now her guard was up, like I was someone she had to defend against. After tucking Sophia into bed, I braced myself and knocked on the bedroom door. I asked if we could talk more calmly. Denise cracked it open, her face set in a weary scowl. "Talk about what?" "How I'm the enemy for not balancing your precious budget. I'm going to shower." She dismissed me with an exasperated wave. I walked away, mind spinning. Our goals should have been aligned. Pay off debts, build a stable life, maybe buy a bigger house someday. But it felt like we were on separate tracks, each veering further from the other. I decided I would track every penny from now on, meticulously if needed, because if there was something truly wrong, like hidden spending or worse, I wanted proof. That night, as I lay in our half-empty bed, I recalled lines from my old deployment diaries. I'd written about how nothing could threaten my marriage, not even the distance of war. Now I found that distance multiplied by suspicion. Denise's late nights, unexplained errands, and her dismissive attitude about finances formed a puzzle I was determined to solve. Sleep came reluctantly, my mind churning with possible reasons for her behavior. Could she be in debt for something personal? Could there be someone else? The possibility of infidelity loomed, but I wasn't ready to accuse her outright. Instead, I decided to track details carefully. If it turned out she was just overwhelmed or depressed, I'd help her. If it was something else, some betrayal, I'd need solid proof. Because if I'd learned anything in the army, it's that battles are won with patience and strategy, not blind rage. 2 days later, I found an unexplained receipt in the trash. It was from a hotel downtown, the Silvercrest Inn, dated a week before I returned home. The charge wasn't huge, just a meal and a day pass. But why would Denise be at that hotel unless she'd been meeting someone? My heart clenched as I stared at the slip of paper. Could be nothing, I told myself, but the sick feeling in my stomach suggested otherwise. That afternoon, I called my friend Trent, who'd mentioned youth baseball coaching. We arranged to meet at the local park. Sometimes, just stepping outside helps me think clearer. Trent's a big guy with an easy smile, sporting a worn ball cap. He told me about the coaching gig, how they needed an extra assistant for kids aged 6 to 8. The pay was modest, but it offered flexible hours that could mesh with my upcoming college plans. "Think about it," he said, patting my shoulder. "Working with kids might help you decompress, you know? And you're great with them. I remember how you handled those orphans overseas." I tried to smile. "Yeah, sure. I'll think it over." When I got back home, Denise was again out, so I scrolled through the phone bill. A particular number kept appearing, one I'd never seen before. I dialed it from my phone, my pulse jumping. After a single ring, it cut off. I tried again. Nothing. I jotted down the digits in a small notebook. No sense jumping to conclusions, I thought, but I already suspected a link between that number and the Silvercrest Inn. Later that evening, Denise swept into the house wearing a crisp blouse that looked brand new. She had a flurry of shopping bags in hand. They had a huge sale, she announced, setting them down on the couch. Something about her demeanor was too bright, like forced cheer. I offered a half smile. Good deals, huh? She nodded briskly, then changed the subject. We're low on groceries, so I'll head out again, maybe tomorrow. She turned to rummage through the cabinet. Where's the coffee? We keep running out of stuff. I took a breath, steeling myself. Denise, can we talk? Her face fell slightly. About what? About this. I held up the receipt from the Silvercrest. Her eyes flickered. She let out a tense laugh. You're going through the trash now. I was cleaning up, I said, voice measured. Why'd you go to the Silvercrest Inn? She snatched the receipt from my hand. I had a girls' day with a coworker, okay? We used their spa pass. Is that a crime? I studied her, noticing the tightness in her jaw. You never mentioned any spa day. We can't exactly afford random spa treatments either. She rolled her eyes. I don't have to narrate every detail of my life, Jason. I'm a grown woman, and it wasn't expensive. Why are you acting like a detective? Heat flared in my chest. Because I come home and see we're broke, but you're dropping money on spa passes. Something's off here. She folded her arms. You're out of line. I said it was with a friend. You want me to give you her name, her phone number, everything? Yes, I answered quietly. Actually, I do. Denise's mouth tightened into a hard line. Unbelievable. You spend months away, then come back pointing fingers. If this is how it's gonna be, maybe we shouldn't even bother. She tossed the receipt aside like it meant nothing, heading toward the bedroom. I followed. Bother with what? This marriage. My voice came out louder than intended. I deserve answers. Where's the money gone? Who's been calling all hours of the night? And why does it feel like you can't even stand me anymore? She whipped around. Stop interrogating me like I'm some criminal. I'm your wife, not a suspect. Then act like it. I fired back, voice shaking. Work with me here. We have a daughter to raise. A tense silence settled between us. Denise's eyes flashed with anger, but also something akin to guilt. Finally, she spat out. If you can't trust me, that's on you. I'm doing the best I can. With that, she grabbed her phone and slammed the bedroom door, leaving me seething in the hallway. My pulse hammered. I could hear muffled voices from behind the door. Was she calling that unknown number? I retreated to the living room and stared at the family photo on the mantel. The memory of that day, our wedding day, felt like another life. I tried to calm down, reminding myself to protect Sophia from any drama. She was napping, thank God, oblivious to the shouting. That night, I forced dinner. Denise emerged briefly to eat, ignoring any attempt at conversation. Frustration gnawed at me. Despite the tension, I took mental notes. She claimed it was a spa day. Possibly a lie. She's shutting me out. The army taught me to gather intel first, react second. So that's what I'd do, gather intel. I'd check bank statements, maybe talk to my mother-in-law. If Denise was lying, I'd find out. The argument ended with both of us avoiding each other. She retreated into a world of phone calls and texting, phone held close like a lifeline. Around midnight, I stood in the doorway, watching her. She gave me a hollow glare. No words were exchanged, but it felt like the moment we turned from partners into adversaries. When I finally found sleep, it was riddled with nightmares of searching endless hallways for Denise, only to find her with a faceless stranger. I awoke drenched in sweat, heart pounding. Am I losing my mind? In the dim glow of early dawn, I decided enough was enough. I wouldn't let suspicion consume me. I would search for facts, gently, systematically, the way I'd approach a mission. If she was betraying me, I'd discover the truth. If she was just overwhelmed or depressed, I'd find a way to fix it. But burying my head in the sand wasn't an option anymore. The next day was tough. She left early again, and as I got Sophia ready, I felt that leaden sense that the life I'd imagined, simple, loving, stable, was unraveling. A war was brewing in my own home, and I didn't even fully understand the enemy yet. I just knew we were at a breaking point, and the next confrontation might shatter everything I believed about our marriage. The day Denise actually uttered the words, "I want a divorce," felt both surreal and painfully predictable. It happened on a Saturday morning. I was in the kitchen feeding Sophia applesauce while juggling a phone call from my bank about overdraft charges. Denise had just rolled out of bed, hair tousled, wearing sweats that hung loosely on her slender frame. She looked at me with an expression of grim determination, as though she'd rehearsed this. "Jason, we need to talk." I nodded, pressing the phone to my shoulder. "Sure. Just 1 second." The bank rep was still rattling on about account balances. Denise's stare intensified, so I ended the call abruptly. "Yes, I'm here," I said, turning to face her. "Don't say anything," she began, voice shaking. "Just listen. I've made a decision. I can't live like this, feeling like I'm under a microscope, constantly judged. We've grown apart, and it's obvious we want different things." Her words hammered at my chest. I glanced at Sophia, who was obliviously banging her spoon. "Different things? I'm only trying to figure out our finances and see if we can salvage," she cut me off. "It's not just about money. We've been incompatible for a while now. The distance, your deployment, the distrust, it's too much." My pulse pounded in my ears. "What are you saying, Denise?" She exhaled a quivering breath. "I'm saying I want a divorce. I want you to move out." Her voice caught. "I've already talked to a lawyer." A heavy weight pressed on my chest, making it hard to breathe. I fought to stay composed, mindful that Sophia was right there. "A lawyer?" She nodded. "Her name is Pamela Rogers. She's good at these cases. She said we can do this amicably if we keep it simple." Amicably? My mind spun. "We have a house. A child." My voice came out ragged. "This is insane. We haven't even tried counseling. You won't tell me what's really going on." Denise's eyes glossed with tears. "I'm done explaining myself, Jason. You've made me feel like a prisoner in my own home." I wanted to argue that she'd locked me out of her world, but the look on her face said she was past reasoning. My hands trembled as I reached for Sophia, lifting her out of the high chair. I took slow, steady breaths, determined not to break down in front of my daughter. "So you're just throwing in the towel?" She shifted, crossing her arms protectively. "This isn't sudden. I felt this way for months. I just didn't know how to say it while you were overseas." My heart stung at the implication that I was to blame for being away. "What about Sophia?" I asked quietly, hugging our toddler close to my chest. "She needs both of us." Denise swallowed. "Of course we'll figure out custody. But Jason, I can't keep pretending." Then she squared her shoulders as if trying to exude confidence. "You can stay for a few days if you need time, but eventually, you'll have to find another place. Or maybe I will. Whatever Pamela advises." My mind reeled. This was not how I expected my life to look. I'd survived physically dangerous missions abroad, only to come home and see my family disintegrate in front of me. Sophia wriggled in my arms, her big brown eyes staring up in confusion. Despite my shock, I managed a numb sort of calm, forging a plan in my head. "I'll see if we can mediate. There must be a mistake." But the look in Denise's eyes, both weary and resolute, told me she was serious. Something was pushing her away, or someone. I set Sophia down on the living room rug and walked with Denise toward the hallway, so our daughter wouldn't hear us if we raised our voices. I leaned in, my voice barely above a whisper. "Is there someone else?" She hesitated, blinking rapidly. "That's not relevant. I'm unhappy, period." That half-answer felt like a punch to my gut. I recognized evasion from my Army intelligence days, the deliberate omission that might as well be a confession. Before I could press further, she said, "Look, Pamela will reach out to you, or your lawyer. Let's not make this ugly." Then she drifted into the bedroom, closing the door behind her. I slumped onto the couch, burying my face in my hands. I couldn't help but wonder, who is Pamela Rogers? What does she already know about me from Denise's perspective? A wave of helpless anger coursed through me. I glanced at Sophia, who was playing with her toy blocks and babbling, blissfully unaware that her family was fracturing. The day stretched on in a fog. Denise packed an overnight bag for Sophia, planning to drop her off at her mom's for the weekend. "We both need time to cool off," she said tersely, ignoring my attempts to say I wanted to keep Sophia here. A wave of panic seized me as I watched them leave. I felt powerless, exiled from my own daughter's life. By evening, the house was dead silent. I wandered through the empty rooms, noticing how each item felt out of place now. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number read, "This is Pamela Rogers. We'll be in touch." My stomach churned. I'd expected a heads up from Denise, but seeing it on my phone made it painfully real. I stepped onto the porch, staring at the quiet street. Everything looked so normal. Neighbors mowing lawns, kids riding bikes. But inside me, a storm raged. Is this how it ends? I'd always believed love conquered distance and adversity. Now, faced with divorce papers, I was forced to question everything. As the sky darkened, I remembered I had nowhere to go if Denise insisted I move out soon. My parents had passed away, and my sister, Michelle, lived in a care facility for her special needs. I had some army buddies scattered around the state, but this wasn't the return home scenario I'd counted on. My finances weren't strong enough to just rent a new place instantly either. Damn it, how did I let it get this far? That night, I lay awake in a near-empty house. My wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, was gone, my daughter was at her grandma's, and a lawyer I'd never met was shaping my future from behind the scenes. I wanted to cry or punch something, but I forced myself to breathe. If Denise wanted war, I'd gather my strength. This time, it would be a battle fought with evidence and cunning. No bullets, no body armor, but a conflict no less real. Before dawn, I resolved, protect Sophia, keep calm, and find the truth. Because if Denise was lying about something big, infidelity, hidden accounts, or a deeper betrayal, I'd uncover it. My heartbreak would fuel a quiet, methodical vengeance that no one, not even an attorney as fierce as Pamela Rogers, would see coming. I woke up to an uneasy sky, the dawn light barely breaking through thick gray clouds. It seemed fitting, given that today was my first court hearing. Denise's lawyer, a woman named Pamela Rogers, had already sent an email instructing me to arrive at the county courthouse by 9. I'd never been in a courtroom for anything serious. The idea of a judge deciding my fate felt alien and terrifying. After Sophia woke, I fixed her a simple breakfast of oatmeal and fruit. She was all smiles, oblivious to the tension gnawing at my stomach. I tried to keep my tone light, asking her if she'd like to color in her new book, but my voice kept catching in my throat. When I glanced at the clock, 8:10, I felt a surge of panic. I can't be late. So I called a neighbor to watch Sophia just for the morning. After a quick goodbye, I got in my old pickup and headed downtown. The courthouse was a squat, beige building that somehow felt oppressive. As I walked in, I noticed Denise in the lobby, wearing a tailored gray skirt suit that made her look more professional than I'd ever seen her. She was talking quietly to a tall, poised woman, presumably Pamela Rogers. Neither of them acknowledged me. It stung a little, but I gritted my teeth, determined to stay calm. I got led into a small waiting area. A bailiff said, "You Jason Clark?" I nodded. He pointed me to the right corridor. My heart hammered like I was stepping onto a battlefield, but instead of enemy lines, I saw polished floors and attorneys lugging briefcases. The tension in my shoulders felt heavier with each step. Inside the courtroom, the judge, a stern-looking man with a receding hairline, took his seat. My breath caught as I recognized Judge Hammond, rumored to be tough on paternal custody cases. Denise and Pamela sat at one table, me at the opposite. I felt painfully alone. I had no lawyer, no time or money to hire one yet, so it was just me. Pamela stood, her voice carrying a cool confidence. She addressed the judge, describing me as absent for long stretches, claiming I provided little emotional or financial support to my wife and child. She sprinkled in details that sounded plausible but painted a distorted picture. Me not being home, me criticizing Denise's spending, me causing tension. My heart sank. Partial truths are the hardest to fight. Judge Hammond glanced over at me, expression neutral. "Mr. Clark, would you like to respond?" My throat felt dry. I managed to stand, hands shaking. "I was in the Army, Your Honor. I sent money home regularly. And I believe." I paused, forcing myself not to sound desperate. "I believe there are inconsistencies in what's been said." Pamela slid some papers forward, explaining that Denise had been forced to cover the mortgage alone, that I'd only occasionally deposited funds. She even had bank statements, though I could see some transactions were missing. Panic flickered in my chest. I realized how unprepared I was to refute her polished evidence. All I had were my memory and gut feelings that Denise had hidden or misused the money. We went back and forth. The judge asked a few curt questions. "Mr. Clark, How often did you deposit funds? Do you have written proof? My mind scrambled. I mumbled I had some copies of checks, but not all. They were in a folder at home. The hearing didn't last long, maybe half an hour. But the damage was done. The judge concluded that until further notice, I'd be responsible for continuing the mortgage payments, plus monthly child support and a spousal support amount. My eyes stung. I tried to keep my expression blank, but inside I was reeling. How am I supposed to pay all that when I barely have enough for rent if she kicks me out? I caught a brief glimpse of Denise's face, a conflicted mix of relief and something like guilt. Pamela appeared calm, professional. She didn't look triumphant, just focused. Maybe it's all in a day's work for her. The bailiff ushered us out, telling us a more detailed hearing would happen in a few weeks. So that was it. My entire life changed in the span of minutes. Outside in the hallway, Denise avoided my eyes. She tapped her phone, probably texting. I stepped close enough to speak, keeping my voice low. How could you do this? Ask for so much when you know I can't afford it all. She hesitated, then shook her head. I'm just following my lawyer's advice. Let's keep this civil. Civil? I echoed, hollowly. You just told the judge I abandoned you. That's not civil. But I wasn't going to argue in a public corridor. Already people passing by were giving us curious looks. I exhaled, shoulders tense, and walked out of the building. In the parking lot, I paused by my truck, letting the humiliation sink in. My phone buzzed, a text from the neighbor telling me Sophia was fine and playing with some toys. I stared at the message, my emotions twisting. At least my daughter is safe. Even if the court's decision felt like a punch to the gut, I still had my fatherly duties, and I wouldn't let them slip through my fingers. The next day, I started sorting through every financial record I could dig up. Old emails, bank statements, wire transfer receipts from my time overseas. I wrote notes in a battered spiral notebook, marking differences in dates and amounts. Each discrepancy fueled my anger, but it also forced me to focus. If I want any chance at reversing the judge's decision, I need to show the truth. That night, I lay in bed, reliving the hearing. Denise had been so composed, almost like a stranger I couldn't recognize. Meanwhile, I'd looked like the disorganized ex-soldier stumbling over words. I clenched my fists, vowing I'd never go into court so unprepared again. I'd line up every piece of evidence, every receipt, every deposit slip. If she was lying to sabotage me, I'd prove it. That vow settled something in me. The Army taught me a lesson. If you lose the first battle, regroup, plan better, and hit them with everything you've got next time. In the silence, I found a small flicker of determination. Sure, I was cornered financially. Sure, Denise seemed to have the upper hand. But I had something too, my knowledge of her patterns, her secrets, and the facts about how I'd tried to support our family. I told myself, Jason Clark, you survived war zones. You can handle divorce court. Still, the memory of Pamela Rogers's measured tone haunted me. She'd made me out to be an erratic father, sowing doubt about my fitness as a parent. I swallowed down the humiliation. If she thinks I'm unstable, maybe I'll show her just how stable and methodical I can be. I closed my eyes that night, replaying the judge's words in my head. Mortgage, alimony, child support, until further review. I realized this was just the start of a bigger war. And in a war, you don't give up at the first loss. You prepare your counteroffensive. A week later, I found myself on a dusty baseball diamond at Greenfield Park. The bleachers were old and creaky, the outfield grass patchy in some places. And yet, there was an energy here. Kids scurrying around with gloves, a sense of possibility that felt oddly comforting. It was exactly the distraction I needed from the chaos of my divorce. My old Army buddy, Trent Donovan, trotted over with a wide grin. You made it, he said, handing me a spare coach's cap. Practices start tomorrow, but I wanted to show you around. I ran a hand over the brim of the hat. Thanks, I said, trying not to sound too relieved. Trent had told me about a paid assistant coaching position for the local youth team, ages 8 to 10. The pay wouldn't solve my money problems, but every little bit helped. Plus, it offered an escape, a couple hours each day focusing on baseball rather than court orders. We spent the morning tidying the dugout, sorting equipment, and chalking the baseline. At one point, I asked, so, how many kids are on the roster? Trent flipped through a clipboard. We got 15 so far. Ages all over the place. Some kids want to pitch, others just want to run around. The league is pretty informal. He paused. Oh, and apparently one child joined last minute, Nathan Rogers. I think his mom is a lawyer or something. The mention of Rogers made my pulse jump. Could that be Pamela's kid? Rogers, that name rings a bell, I said, keeping my face neutral. Yeah, might be the same Rogers. She's well known around here, Trent replied. Anyway, the more the merrier. Hearing that name felt like a cosmic joke. The very woman who's painting me as an unfit father. Her son might be on this team? Part of me wanted to back out, but I'd promised Trent, and I needed the job. Besides, maybe seeing me in a nurturing environment would contradict whatever Pamela believed about me. The next day, I arrived early to greet the parents and kids. A line of cars pulled into the lot. A boy hopped out of a sedan carrying a shiny new glove, looking a bit shy. Moments later, a tall woman in a business skirt stepped out of the driver's seat, Pamela Rogers herself. My stomach tensed, but I pasted on a polite smile. Deep breaths, Jason. She spotted me by the chain-link fence. Her eyes flickered with recognition, maybe surprise. She walked over, her posture impeccable. Mr. Clark, she said evenly. I didn't realize you were the assistant coach. There was no malice in her tone, just that calm attorney's voice. I cleared my throat. Yeah, hi. Didn't expect to see you here either. Nathan peeked from behind his mother's leg. He looked about 8, brown hair sticking out from under a ball cap. Hi, he mumbled, glancing between me and Pamela. She introduced him with a gentle pat on his shoulder. Nathan, this is Coach Clark. He'll help you with batting practice. The awkwardness hovered for a moment. Then Trent swooped in, all smiles, showing Nathan to the dugout. Pamela stayed behind, crossing her arms. Look, she began softly. I know the situation between you and Denise is complicated, but Nathan just loves baseball, so let's keep things professional, okay? I forced a nod, though my heart pounded. Absolutely. I want the kids to have a good time. That's what matters. Pamela gave a tight smile, then turned away to watch the practice from the bleachers. Throughout the session, I couldn't help sneaking glances at her. She seemed different out here in the open air, wearing casual flats instead of the imposing courtroom heels. Meanwhile, Nathan was a typical kid, eager, a bit clumsy at first, but you could tell he had spirit. When I showed him how to swing, he listened attentively, nodding. After a few tries, he connected with the ball and sent it flying past the pitcher's mound. Pamela clapped from the stands, and for a moment, I saw just a regular mom cheering her child. That confusion flickered in me again. How can the same woman be so ruthless in court? As the kids rotated stations, Trent and I chatted near the dugout. He teased me about the hush that fell when Pamela arrived. Man, you looked like you saw a ghost, he joked. I shrugged it off with a half-smile, not wanting to bring up the divorce fight. The day ended without incident, though my nerves were shot. Over the next few practices, we established a routine. The kids ran warm-ups. I taught them batting fundamentals. Trent handled fielding drills. Pamela occasionally hovered at the sidelines, along with other parents. She never brought up the legal case, and neither did I. It was a strange, unspoken truce. But from the corner of my eye, I'd catch her observing me with an expression that suggested she was reevaluating something. Maybe she was trying to reconcile the unstable father angle with the patient coach guiding kids on the field. One afternoon, after practice ended, I was wiping down equipment when Pamela approached. Nathan forgot his water bottle, she explained, picking it up. She hesitated, then asked, he says you gave him tips on how to get over his fear of the ball. He was really grateful. I set the last bat in the rack. He's doing great. Just needed encouragement. My voice was guarded but polite. Pamela studied me a moment. Look, she paused, as if choosing words carefully. I'm committed to my client's best interests. But as a mother, I appreciate someone who invests in kids. So thank you. It was the most human thing I'd heard from her. I gave a curt nod, resisting the urge to push for a conversation about Denise. I knew better than to blur lines. Professional is safer, I reminded myself. Once she left, I found my thoughts spinning. Maybe she'd begun to sense a mismatch between Denise's claims and the reality of who I was. That glimmer of possibility made my burdens feel slightly lighter. As I drove home, the day's stress settled into a milder ache. The coaching gig didn't fix my looming financial meltdown or the court's orders, but it offered a tiny sanctuary. On the field, I was just Coach Clark, focused on grounders and home plates rather than mortgage bills and custody threats. Before bed, I checked my phone to see if any new legal documents had arrived. Nothing yet. I sat at my kitchen table, going over notes about the kids' skill levels, thinking about how to boost their confidence. In a strange twist, guiding these young players felt like therapy for me. If I could handle teaching a nervous 8-year-old how to catch a pop fly, maybe I could handle the next round in court. After another draining week of balancing child support payments and rummaging for any steady side income, I decided it was time to dig deeper. The initial hearing had left me with a sense of injustice, like my side hadn't even been heard. If Denise was twisting facts, and I strongly suspected she was, then I needed proof. One morning, I made a few calls to old Army buddies. One was stationed out of state. Another lived a couple towns over. A third, Jonah Pierce, said he knew someone who worked in private investigations, an ex-cop who'd left the force on good terms named Manuel Reyes. I hesitated about hiring a PI. It sounded dramatic. But if my finances were on the line, and if there was even a hint of another person fueling Denise's shady behavior, I needed real evidence. I called Reyes that afternoon, explaining my situation in careful, general terms. I didn't mention Pamela Rogers or Nathan, just that my wife might be hiding money or living a lifestyle I couldn't account for. He quoted me a modest fee for limited background checks and surveillance. It was steep for my current budget, but I said I'd think it over. Meanwhile, I kept a personal journal, lists of suspicious transactions, approximate times Denise came home late, any phone numbers that popped up frequently. I felt guilty, like I was betraying the woman I'd once loved. But then I'd remember the pit in my stomach when she blindsided me in court. You gotta protect yourself now, Jason. During baseball practice, I noticed Pamela lingering by the fence more often. She'd chat with a few parents, greet her son, then glance at me with an unreadable expression. One day, a cluster of parents gathered around while the kids did infield drills. They asked me about my Army days, about my approach to coaching. Pamela listened quietly, occasionally nodding. She didn't seem hostile. If anything, she looked thoughtful, as though reevaluating me. Some part of me wondered if her perspective was shifting after watching me calmly guide the kids. One Thursday evening, a new confusion arose. I went to pick up Sophia from Denise's place, an arrangement spelled out by the court's temporary schedule. The driveway had a sleek black sedan parked out front, not Denise's usual car. When I knocked, she answered the door in a rush. I heard a man's voice from inside. She stepped out, swiftly pulling the door closed behind her. "Everything okay?" I asked, scanning her face. She nodded tersely. "Just a friend," she said, obviously not wanting me to see who it was. My heart gave a painful lurch, but I kept my expression neutral. "Sophia's in the living room. I'll bring her." I stood on the porch, resisting the urge to push past her. Her expression was so guarded that I got the message. Keep out of my business. A moment later, Sophia came bounding out, arms outstretched. "Daddy," she squealed. I scooped her up, my heartbreak momentarily soothed by her little arms around my neck. But as we walked to my truck, I spotted a man's silhouette at the window. Was he Marcus Grant, or just someone else entirely? Back at my place, I carefully wrote the license plate number of that black sedan in my journal, checking I'd remember it right. I felt a pang of guilt for being so suspicious, but the uncertain state of my marriage and custody forced me to be thorough. If that man was fueling Denise's push for divorce or messing with Sophia's environment, I needed to know. Later that night, I got a surprise text from Pamela Rogers. Her tone was strictly professional, reminding me about next week's custody mediation session. She wrote, "Please remember you're required to bring updated financial statements." Then, curiously, "If you have any clarifications about your deposit records, kindly share." That last line was weirdly polite, almost as if she was inviting me to present evidence. I wondered if she was starting to sense Denise's story had cracks. I typed back a short response, carefully worded. "Thank you for the reminder. I'll provide detailed records." I didn't mention anything else, didn't say I had a private investigator in mind, or that I was suspicious of men sneaking around Denise's place. No need to reveal my hand. At baseball practice the next day, she approached me while Nathan chased grounders. "How's everything?" she asked in a low voice, distinct from her usual court formality. She almost sounded concerned. I shrugged. "I'm adjusting. You know how these things go." Then I forced a small smile. "Nathan's improving a lot in batting. He's quick to adapt." A flicker of pride touched her eyes. "Yes, he's excited. He talks about you sometimes, says you're patient, and explain things clearly. I guess thanks. Her words hung in the air. I offered a nod, uncertain how to respond to Denise's own lawyer praising me. Then Pamela turned away, her professional mask slipping back into place as other parents came by with questions. I couldn't read her, but part of me sensed she might be noticing the contradictions between Denise's portrayal of me and my real behavior. After practice, I drove home feeling an odd sense of possibility. The key to everything might lie in quietly documenting every fact while letting the real Jason Clark show. Maybe if I kept calm, didn't lash out, Pamela's doubts about Denise's story would deepen. That wouldn't magically fix my finances, but it could shift the custody dynamic. That night, I made a final decision to hire Manuel Reyes for a week's worth of light investigation. Over the phone, he explained he'd do discreet checks, verifying finances, looking up property or hidden assets, maybe a background check on that black sedan's plate. I authorized him to proceed, crossing my fingers I could scrape the money together. Before I went to bed, I scribbled a quote from my army days in my journal. Information is ammunition. This was a different kind of battlefield, one waged with receipts and quiet observations. If I could gather enough ammunition, I might stand a chance. And maybe, just maybe, I'd protect Sophia from a toxic environment and keep myself from getting blindsided in court again. Late Saturday afternoon, I got a text from Denise. Pick Sophia up at 5 p.m. My place. Usually, I'd meet her at a neutral spot, but this sounded urgent. I shrugged, figuring I'd do as asked. When I arrived, I saw a second car once again, this time a beat-up red hatchback. Immediately, my gut told me something was off. I rang the doorbell. Moments later, Denise opened up, wearing a flustered expression. Sophia clung to her leg, wide-eyed. In the background, the living room was messy, discarded beer cans on the coffee table, a faint smell of smoke. My heart thumped. This wasn't the neat house I remembered from months ago. I knelt down, scooping Sophia into my arms. Her eyes were watery, like she'd been crying. "Daddy," she whispered, burying her face in my shoulder. I softened my tone, ignoring the tension with Denise. "Hey, baby, everything's okay." But inside, alarm bells rang. I glimpsed a man on the couch, flipping through TV channels, ignoring my presence. His eyes were bloodshot. Could that be Marcus? Or someone else? I wanted to demand answers, but I stayed civil for Sophia's sake. Denise's voice wobbled. "I need you to take her. We, have people over, and I can't watch her tonight." I studied her face. People. The word hung, thick with implications. "Denise, are these the kind of folks she should be around?" Her jaw tightened. "That's none of your business. Just take her. I have stuff going on." I bit back my anger. Sophia smelled like stale cigarette smoke. My protective instincts flared. "I'll take her," I said quietly, adjusting her on my hip. She let out a tiny whimper, hugging me closer. Behind Denise, I noticed the messy kitchen, open pizza boxes, half-empty liquor bottles on the table. The scene was enough to make me realize she'd let things slip badly. I also spotted a small plastic bag on the counter. Pills, maybe? The sight chilled me. If that's what it looks like. I forced my expression neutral. "All right, let's go, sophomore." As I turned to leave, I caught the man's voice slur something to Denise. "You letting him barge in here?" She shot him a glare, then avoided my eyes. My God, how far down has she gone? Was all I could think. On the drive home, Sophia stayed uncharacteristically quiet, occasionally muttering, "Mommy's friends are loud." My chest twisted. She deserved better than that chaos. Once we got home, I gave her a warm bath and put on her comfy pajamas. She perked up with a cartoon, but I couldn't shake the image of those pills on the counter. The next day, I wrote every detail in my journal. The liquor, the suspicious bag, the man's slurred voice. I was done giving Denise the benefit of the doubt. If she was exposing Sophia to a dangerous environment, I needed real evidence to show the court. I called Manuel Reyes and told him about the pills, the messy living room, and the men coming and going. He sounded concerned. "I'll see what I can document," he said. "Maybe get a neighbor's testimony or photograph who's visiting." That same afternoon, I had baseball practice. I showed up with Sophia in tow, no sitter available. She played near the bleachers, coloring in a small notebook. Some parents gave me sympathetic smiles, and I explained last-minute childcare issues. By now, a few folks had gleaned that I was in a rocky divorce situation, though I kept details minimal. Partway through the drills, I spotted Pamela Rogers arriving with Nathan. She did a double take when she saw Sophia on the sidelines. After guiding Nathan onto the field, she came over, lowering her voice. "Everything all right? I usually don't see your daughter here." I hesitated, uncertain how much to reveal. Had no choice. Denise asked me to pick her up early. The environment at her place, it's not great. Pamela's brow furrowed. Not great in what sense? She looked genuinely concerned. I bit my lip. This was tricky. She was still Denise's lawyer. But her eyes held a flicker of empathy. Finally, I spoke in a measured tone. "Messy. Loud. Some questionable people around." I stopped short of accusing Denise of drug involvement, mindful of how she might spin my words in court. Pamela's expression grew thoughtful. She didn't push. Instead, she nodded slowly and said, "I see." Then she walked back to watch Nathan. Nothing more was said, but that moment felt significant. She'd seen me and Sophia in the flesh, while Denise was presumably hosting a chaotic party. The contradiction had to be echoing in her mind. As practice ended, I packed up the bats. Pamela approached, stepping aside so we wouldn't be overheard. "Mr. Clark, I can't speak out of turn about my client, but if there's ever a concern for the child's well-being, it may come up in mediation." Her gaze flicked to Sophia, who was happily drawing in the dirt with a stick. "You should gather whatever documentation you have." My heart thumped. This sounded almost like a hint. "Understood," I said. "Thank you." Then I took Sophia's hand and headed to the truck, mind buzzing with new resolve. A few days later, I found the caretaker next door to Denise's house, an older woman named Loretta, watering her plants. Carefully, I introduced myself, explaining I was concerned about the noise and suspicious visitors around my daughter's mother's place. Loretta sighed, saying, "I've heard him at all hours. Lots of coming and going. Makes me nervous." She paused, looking over at the shuttered windows of Denise's living room. "I'd be willing to say something if it helps keep a little girl safe." I thanked her, swallowing a flood of gratitude. Having a first-hand witness could be vital. That night, Manuel Reyes called to confirm he was quietly collecting more specifics. He said he might have pictures soon. I told him not to risk any confrontation, just keep an eye out. We hung up, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a ray of hope. I'm not just playing defense. I'm taking steps to shift the custody battle in my favor. By the end of that week, I'd compiled a small folder. Neighbor statements, phone logs, notes about suspicious substances. My mind kept replaying the image of Sophia's scared eyes in that messy living room. It fueled my determination. I won't let her be in harm's way. Period. Though I tried not to let anger consume me, each new detail about Denise's behavior hardened my resolve. I still had no idea what caused this drastic change in her, but I suspected Marcus or some other shady crowd might be involved. If that was the path she'd chosen, fine. My focus now was making sure Sophia stayed safe. And if that meant exposing Denise's facade in court, so be it. The quiet plan was clear. Gather the evidence. Show the judge that I wasn't the irresponsible one. My revenge wasn't about hurting Denise physically or even humiliating her. It was about protecting my daughter and reclaiming my own dignity. With each piece of information, I felt the walls around Denise's story start to crack. She might not see it yet, but I sensed her carefully constructed narrative was on the verge of collapsing, and I'd be the one to make it crumble. I couldn't have guessed I'd spend my summer holed up at a secondhand desk, sifting through receipts, phone logs, and random scraps of information. Yet here I was, cross-referencing everything Manny Reyes, my hired private investigator, brought me. The desk lamp flickered overhead, reminding me I still hadn't replaced the bulb. The rest of the house sat in darkness, except for a soft glow of the TV in the living room where Sophia dozed on the couch. She'd conked out waiting for me to finish grown-up work. My phone buzzed. It was a text from my army friend, Trent Donovan. "Hitting the gym at 7 tomorrow. Join me if you can." I typed back a quick thanks but not sure. With so many demands, my old routines had fallen by the wayside. Right now, my mission was strictly about building an ironclad case. Reyes had been quietly tailing Denise for a couple of weeks. He reported frequent visits by shady acquaintances, possible drugs in the house, and a general pattern of negligence. Photographs showed men smoking on the porch and partying inside, even on days when Sophia was supposed to be there. My stomach turned each time I flipped through the images. I could hardly believe the woman in those pictures was the same Denise I once lovingly married. When I gathered everything, bank statements, suspicious credit card charges, timestamps of these gatherings, I felt the first real sense of power in a while. I'm not helpless. The next court session was looming, and I intended to walk in with facts that would punch holes in Denise's carefully crafted story. The phone buzzed again, a new text from Trent. Hey, Manny Reyes asked if I could confirm your old bank transfers. He's verifying a timeline. Trent had once helped me deposit money from a foreign base. I realized Manny must be double-checking that info too. Perfect. I typed back that I appreciated the help. By midnight, my eyes were burning, but a quiet satisfaction spread through me. This evidence covered both financial neglect and child endangerment, like a puzzle snapped into place. Before turning off the desk lamp, I carefully stacked the printouts into a folder labeled Clark versus Clark. The label stung a bit. We used to be a team. Now it's me against her. In the morning, I found Sophia awake and coloring at the kitchen table. She smiled sweetly, then asked, "Daddy, can I see Mommy today?" The question pricked my heart. I knew she missed her mother, but after what Manny had documented, I couldn't bear letting her stay there unsupervised. Soon, I told myself, the court will see reason. Maybe later, I said, trying to mask my worry. Let's see how the day goes. I drove to the baseball field that afternoon, rummaging through sports gear in the trunk. Trent was prepping a batting cage session, and I planned to assist. Doing normal activities kept me sane. Arriving early, I discovered Pamela Rogers already in the bleachers, her son Nathan jogging around the bases with a couple other kids. She glanced over at me, giving a brief nod, somewhere between polite and contemplative. During practice, Pamela stepped closer. "How's everything, Mr. Clark?" she asked, arms crossed. I could sense hesitation in her posture. She didn't want to appear friendly in front of other parents, perhaps. I shrugged, mindful that she was still working for Denise. "Busy," I replied. "Lots of documents to sort out." I kept my tone neutral. No need to show my hand prematurely. She exhaled like she had more to say, but decided against it. "I understand," she murmured, then moved away. Something about her expression made me think she'd started to doubt Denise's narrative. Maybe she'd uncovered discrepancies on her own. Practice ended smoothly. Kids high-fived each other. I caught myself smiling at Sophia, who was watching from a bench, cheering for her new friends. A few parents joked about hitting a diner for burgers afterward. I politely declined, noticing Pamela also declined. She and Nathan left in a hurry. Once home, I found Manny's latest email waiting on my phone. His updates included an address for a small condo Denise apparently rented under her name, completely unknown to me. The photo attachments showed glimpses of a sparsely furnished place. "Spotted Marcus Grant entering last night," Manny wrote, referencing a man we both suspected was a negative influence. The notion that Denise had a separate condo, paying rent while she claimed financial hardship, infuriated me. This was the smoking gun that proved she'd lied about her living situation in court. I forwarded Manny's summary to Trent, requesting help verifying dates. Then I set my phone aside, burying my face in my hands. This war was escalating. The more I discovered, the more I realized how far Denise had drifted from the life we once shared. Part of me still grieved for the wife I thought I had. Late that evening, I tucked Sophia into bed, then made a call to a local counselor friend, Lucy Warren, someone I knew from high school who offered me a discounted rate if I ever needed emotional support. She answered with a gentle voice. "Hey, Jason. Everything okay?" "I'm coping," I began, hesitant. I outlined the basic situation, forging evidence to protect my daughter, grappling with heartbreak. "Just wanted to know if I'm crazy for taking it this far." She reassured me. "You're her dad, fighting for her well-being. That's not crazy. But watch your stress. Tread carefully, legally speaking." Lucy's calm words soothed me a little. She suggested I keep detailed daily logs of Sophia's schedule, who picks her up, drop-off times, any oddities. The more thorough, the stronger my case. I thanked her, promising to stay grounded. Before bed, I leafed through Manny's evidence once more. Bank statements, condo lease info, pictures of Marcus loafing on a couch while Denise poured alcohol. My instincts flared with anger, but I forced it down. Focus, Jason. This was about building a safe world for Sophia. If that meant dismantling Denise's facade, so be it. And so, piece by piece, I gathered the puzzle. Each day, Manny dug up new details. Each week, I compiled them into a coherent timeline. Day by day, I felt a cold sense of determination taking hold, like I was on a mission again. I'd soon be ready to present the biggest shock to the court, that behind Denise's portrayal of me as negligent, she'd been hiding an entire second life of reckless partying and outright lies. By the end of that week, I had a thick binder of evidence, my arsenal for the looming confrontation. I tucked it away in a locking file cabinet, feeling a surge of grim confidence. My marriage was gone, but my role as Sophia's father was more vital than ever. I'd defend that role with everything I had, no matter who tried to stand in my way. The day I decided to set up covert recordings, I felt a distinct pang of guilt. But Manny convinced me it was within legal limits, as long as we didn't violate wiretap statutes. As long as you're in the conversation and aware of the recording, Manny said, or if it's a public setting, we're good. Desperate times, desperate measures, I supposed. On a cool Wednesday afternoon, I drove to Denise's house with a small voice recorder hidden in my jacket. She had texted me to pick up Sophia. When I parked, I noticed the same battered red car out front, likely Marcus's. My heart pounded. Steadying myself, I reminded myself I was here for Sophia's sake and, if possible, to gather real evidence of any threats or admissions that could help. Inside, I found the living room even more disheveled than last time. Stained carpets, empty fast food containers, a leftover pizza box on the table. Marcus lounged on the recliner, flipping through a phone. Denise wore a tight-lipped scowl, arms folded. Sophia was perched on the couch, looking anxious. "Daddy," she murmured in relief when she saw me. The tension was palpable. Marcus eyed me with thinly veiled contempt. "You again," he muttered. His voice carried an edge, half taunt, half boredom. Denise tried to wave me off, saying, "I got no time for your grilling, Jason." I calmly said, "I'm just picking up my daughter." All the while, my recorder was running. I hoped to catch any sign of aggression or confession about the partying. Sophia shuffled to me, arms outstretched. As I reached to pick her up, Marcus blurted, "Man, you think you can just walk in here, all high and mighty? Watch your step." His tone dripped with threat. My pulse ticked up. This was exactly the kind of intimidation Manny wanted me to capture. Denise snapped at him. "Stop it, Marcus. Let him take the kid." Then she glared at me. "Any day you want to move on from this arrangement, you can. Courts say I get support. You do your part, I do mine. That's it." "Sure," I said, voice level. "I'm doing everything required of me." I cast a deliberate glance at the trash-strewn floor. "And you're not," I thought. But I kept that to myself. A direct confrontation could escalate fast, especially with Sophia in the middle. Marcus got up from the recliner, stepping closer. "You're a real piece of work," he muttered, reeking of stale beer. "Acting like a big hero. But I heard the stories. Denise says you're unstable." I forced a smile. "Right. Very unstable. Picking up my daughter while you lounge around." My heart pounded, but I refused to show fear. He barked a laugh. "Keep talking. See what happens." Denise intervened, shooing him back. She looked both exasperated and uneasy, as though she knew how quickly this could blow up. "Just go, Jason," she hissed. I obliged, hoisting Sophia and stepping onto the porch. Marcus lingered behind Denise, still scowling. Through the half-open door, I heard him cursing me under his breath. If my little recorder caught even half of that exchange, it had confirmed the tension and threat level in the home. Back in my truck, Sophia clung to me, whispering, "Mommy's friend is scary." My heart clenched. "I know, sweetie. You're safe with me." I started the engine, relieved to leave that environment behind. That evening, Manny helped me retrieve the audio file and isolate the relevant bits. We listened to Marcus's threats and Denise's disregard. Manny nodded grimly. "This should help show the court what your kid is dealing with." I felt relieved yet saddened at the same time. I never imagined my life would involve covert recordings of my own wife's living situation. A couple days later, I walked into the youth baseball field for practice. My head was heavy with worry, but the kids' laughter lightened it. As I organized a drill, I noticed Pamela Rogers waiting near the chain-link fence, arms folded. She caught my eye, beckoning me over. I jogged up, adjusting my cap. "Everything all right?" She hesitated. "I need to ask you something, off the record." Her voice was quiet, a serious edge to it. "Have you compiled any evidence regarding Denise's current lifestyle?" Alarm bells went off in my head. Was she fishing for info to preemptively defend Denise, or had she started doubting her client? I replied carefully, I've been documenting what I see to protect my daughter. That's all. Pamela pursed her lips. I see. You should know. I've found some inconsistencies in Denise's financial records. She claims certain expenses, but they don't align with the data she gave me. She paused, scanning my expression. I can't breach client confidentiality, but let's just say I'm concerned. A flicker of hope caught in my chest. Understood, I said. Thanks for letting me know. She straightened, glancing around to ensure no one overheard. Nathan's waiting on me. Just be prepared. Our next hearing might be more eventful than you expect. Then she turned, leaving me with that cryptic statement. For a second, I stood there, stunned that Denise's own attorney appeared to be tipping me off. She must really sense something's off. The fact that Pamela might be wrestling with her duty to represent Denise versus her moral compass was both ironic and encouraging. Perhaps the tide was finally turning in my favor. That night, I faced a new wave of emotion. Part of me felt vindicated. Denise's facade was cracking. Another part felt a lingering sadness. How did we get here? My phone dinged. Manny sending me a short text. Snag more footage. Let's talk tomorrow. I pictured new videos or photos of Marcus raging at the house. Good. The scales were tipping. But the cost was high. A shattered marriage, fear in Sophia's eyes, and me drifting in a world of surveillance and cunning. I called Trent for a quick vent session. I feel like I'm living in some spy movie, I told him. He laughed softly. Hey, remember the old days? We improvised under pressure. Now you're just doing it stateside. You got this, man. After we hung up, I realized I did feel stronger. My heartbreak wasn't gone, but an undercurrent of resolve had replaced the helplessness. I replayed a snippet of the audio capturing Marcus's threat. The court needed to hear that, to realize the real instability wasn't me. It was the environment Denise created. If all went well, the next hearing would shift custody, or at least ensure Sophia's safety. In bed, I closed my eyes, bracing for the battles to come. The scales were tipping, indeed, but in war, a cornered opponent can still strike back. I steeled myself, determined not to let doubt or pity get in the way. Denise's betrayal had set all this in motion, and now I was just finishing what she started, only on my terms. 2 weeks later, I entered the county courthouse carrying a binder so heavy it felt like I was lugging bricks. The corridor bustled with lawyers and clients, a flurry of anxious energy. My chest tightened, but I forced a slow breath, reminding myself, information is ammunition. Use it well. Inside the courtroom, I spotted Denise at her table with Pamela Rogers. Denise wore a pressed suit, her hair neatly styled, projecting composure. But my gaze flicked to her eyes. There was an unmistakable tension, a crack in her usual confidence. Pamela, too, appeared uncharacteristically reserved, as if weighed down by some internal conflict. The judge presiding this time was a different one, Judge Mitchell, known to be fair-minded but strict. I quietly took my seat at the opposing table, where a volunteer legal aide offered me basic support. Manny sat behind me, prepared to hand over documents if needed. My old buddy Trent even showed up, seating himself quietly in the back row, giving me a nod of solidarity. The hearing started with formalities. Denise's side painted me as unstable, again, though I noticed Pamela's arguments lacked the bite from before. Instead, she cited older claims about finances and alleged emotional distance. Then it was my turn. My heart pounded as I rose to present my evidence. I began by calmly recounting the timeline of financial support I sent from overseas, brandishing copies of money transfers. The judge leafed through them, frowning as he saw the sums. This is quite a bit more than Ms. Clark indicated, he noted. I nodded. Yes, Your Honor. I believe some of that money was used elsewhere, not on our household or our daughter. I glanced at Denise, who stared at the table. Next, I shifted to child welfare concerns, referencing Manny Reyes's findings. We have photographic and testimonial evidence that Ms. Clark's home environment includes unfit conditions, alcohol abuse, possible drug presence, and individuals making threats. Manny handed me labeled photos, which the bailiff then passed to the judge. I heard a few murmurs in the courtroom as the images circulated. Denise visibly tensed, fiddling with her pen. Pamela's cheeks reddened slightly, though I couldn't tell if it was anger or embarrassment. The judge studied one photo of Marcus on the couch with scattered pills on a side table. Then he turned a stern gaze at Denise. Miss Clark, can you explain this? Denise cleared her throat. These pictures are out of context, Your Honor. I can't control who visits sometimes, and my friend has medical prescriptions. Her voice wobbled. Jason is exaggerating. I stood my ground, pressing forward. Your Honor, I have recordings of threatening behavior from an individual living in Ms. Clark's home. Another piece of ammunition, the covert audio. The judge allowed me to play a short clip. Marcus's slurred voice, telling me to watch your step, rang across the quiet room. Denise buried her face in her hands. Pamela took a breath, stepping up to address the judge. Your Honor, we acknowledge some friction in Ms. Clark's living situation. However, she paused, lips tight. However, Ms. Clark asserts she's done her best to maintain a safe environment. Judge Mitchell's gaze bored into Denise. Doesn't appear very safe to me, he said sharply. Then he flipped through Manny's sworn statement about the second condo and irregularities in her finances. Ms. Clark, you failed to mention you lease a secondary property. What? Denise mumbled something about personal privacy, glaring at Pamela, who looked as though she might sink into the floor. The judge hammered the next question. Are you receiving additional income, or are there resources you haven't declared? Silence. Denise's lips trembled. Then she finally blurted. It's not Jason's business. It's my life. He's just out to humiliate me. She shot me a look of raw hatred, but I felt only a dull pang of regret. We were way past the point of illusions. From the corner of my eye, I noticed Pamela exhale sharply, then quietly state, Your Honor, I believe the child's best interests are paramount. We must consider adjusting custody to ensure she's safe. Denise spun on her with a shocked expression, but Pamela avoided her glare. The judge, flipping through pages, lifted his gaze. I agree. Mr. Clark, you've provided substantial documentation that Ms. Clark's current environment is unsuitable for a minor. Pending a full investigation, I'm inclined to grant you primary custody, with Ms. Clark's visitation to be supervised or structured as the court sees fit. My chest flooded with relief. I glanced over at Manny, who gave me a silent thumbs up. Denise let out a strangled sound, part frustration, part disbelief. She raised her voice, insisting, This is unfair. He set me up, but the judge had heard enough. With finality, he stated a follow-up hearing would be scheduled, but for now, the new custody arrangement was effective immediately. As the proceedings ended, Denise shot to her feet, ignoring Pamela's attempts to calm her. I hope you're happy, Jason, she hissed. You're taking my daughter away. I swallowed, unsure how to respond. My daughter's safety was paramount, but the human part of me still mourned the devastation in Denise's eyes. Pamela quickly motioned for Denise to step outside before causing a further scene. I gathered my binder, hands trembling with a mix of triumph and sadness. We'd done it. The evidence had broken through the old narrative. The judge saw me not as an unstable father, but as a protector. Trent and Manny patted me on the back. You did good, Manny murmured. Kid's safer now. Outside in the hallway, I heard Denise shouting at Pamela, likely blaming her. The drama echoed off the marble walls. Part of me wanted to walk away quietly. Part of me felt compelled to look. But in the end, I just marched off to the parking lot, where I finally allowed myself one shaky, victorious breath. In the days that followed, the official documents arrived. I had partial custody with the possibility of it becoming full custody if Denise's environment didn't improve. Child support obligations were reevaluated. For the first time in months, I felt the scales of justice righting themselves. Pamela, for her part, reached out briefly to confirm a few details, sounding weary yet professional. And so, the battered ex-soldier who stepped into a losing battle had turned it around, armed with meticulous records and unwavering resolve. The next question would be, how would Denise respond? A cornered opponent can lash out dangerously. Yet I felt prepared to meet whatever came next, with my daughter's well-being guiding me forward. A week after the courtroom victory, life took on an odd calm. Sophia stayed mostly with me, except for scheduled visits where either a social worker or a trusted family friend supervised Denise's time. I saw flickers of guilt in Sophia's eyes. She sensed the rift, even if she didn't fully understand it. I tried to keep her routine as normal as possible. Story time at night, pancakes on Saturdays, baseball games when I had the energy. Meanwhile, Denise seemed to sink further. Manny reported that Marcus was a constant presence, and rumors swirled that her partying escalated. She even tried contacting me late one night, leaving a rambling voicemail. You think you won, but I can't just lose my family. My life is falling apart. My chest clenched listening to it. I still cared about the person she used to be, but I couldn't fix her downward spiral. My priority was Sophia. One afternoon, I got a knock on my door. Surprised, I opened it to see Pamela Rogers, looking unusually casual in jeans and a simple blouse. She gave a tight smile. Mr. Clark, can we talk? I stepped aside, letting her in. Sophia was at a playdate, so the house was quiet. Pamela sat at my worn dining table, her gaze drifting over the humble space. I won't take much time, she said, voice subdued. I want you to know I'm resigning from Denise's case. I blinked. Wait, you're quitting as her lawyer? I'd suspected a rift forming, but hearing it stated was still surprising. She nodded, posture stiff. I can't ethically represent a client who continuously misleads me or provides false information. The day after our last hearing, I confronted her about the condo, the finances. She refused to come clean. Pamela folded her hands on the table. I have an obligation to the court and to my own conscience. A swirl of emotions rushed through me. Relief, validation, maybe a dash of pity. Denise's own lawyer can't stand by her anymore. I appreciate your honesty, I managed. But won't that hurt your reputation? Pamela shrugged. Better that than violating my professional oath. I told Denise to find another attorney if she wants to fight the custody ruling. She was furious. Accused me of betrayal. Her eyes flickered with frustration or regret. I'm sure you heard her yelling that day in the courthouse hall. Yeah, I did, I admitted softly. Then, curiosity tugged. So you think she's truly out of control? Pamela inhaled sharply. I've represented tricky clients before, but this is different. The environment she's in, Marcus, the inconsistencies, it's beyond what I can ethically defend. My moral conflict aside, the evidence stands. The judge's decision was correct. Hearing her say that pinned it down. My push for the truth forced even Denise's advocate to back away. This was, in some sense, my personal vengeance, a moral victory. Not about humiliating Denise, but ensuring the facts shattered her dishonest portrayal of me. I poured Pamela a glass of water. She took a slow sip, then looked around. You always present as calm and prepared, but this must have been brutal. I sighed, lowering myself into a chair. Yeah, it's been rough. Seeing the mother of my child self-destruct, there's no joy in that. But I do what's needed for Sophia. She set the water down. I respect that. A short pause settled between us, an unspoken acknowledgement that our roles had shifted drastically. We were no longer adversaries in a courtroom. Finally, Pamela stood, offering a faint smile. I won't be your enemy anymore. Keep looking out for your daughter. I'll handle the formal withdrawal next week. After that, Denise is on her own. I walked her to the door. Thanks for everything. It felt odd thanking the woman who once tried to convince a judge I was unstable, but she'd clearly changed perspective. She gave a curt nod, then left. I watched her go, feeling a wave of mixed relief and sadness. That evening, Manny dropped by with a final invoice. Looks like you won't be needing me much longer, he said with a grin. Denise is in free fall. The new custody order is in effect, and now her lawyer's jumping ship. I paid Manny, shaking his hand. Couldn't have done it without you. You ever need a favor, you know who to call. He flashed a friendly salute before heading out. Left alone, I mulled over how drastically my situation had changed in just a few months. From a helpless father blindsided by a divorce, to someone who methodically exposed the lies and gained custody of his child. The sense of personal vengeance was real, but it wasn't the gloating type. It was the satisfaction of defending my name and ensuring Sophia's safety. A few days later, I got a call from Denise. Her voice cracked with bitterness. You think you've won, Jason? You're just living in that crappy house with a kid you can't support. I gripped the phone, forcing calm. I'm supporting her just fine. She's happy, healthy. She let out a hollow laugh. So you prefer playing daddy daycare, huh? Good luck living off scraps. Then she hung up. The old me might have felt wounded, but I recognized the lashing out of someone cornered. That night, I texted Trent, letting him know I'd free up more time for baseball coaching. Maybe expand my role, earn a bit more. Freed from the crushing financial obligations the judge had reversed, I could breathe again. Life was hardly perfect, but it was stable. My vengeance was never about punishing Denise with suffering. just clearing my name and protecting Sophia. Days rolled into a week, and Pamela's official withdrawal was filed. Denise posted a furious rant on social media, something about traitors who run from the truth. I ignored it. If she wanted to self-destruct, that was her choice now. With Pamela no longer by her side, the final stage of my revenge felt complete. I'd not only proven my innocence, but also forced an admission of guilt from her own legal camp. My hands shook a little as I typed a short message to Manny. "We're done. Thank you." Then I flicked off my phone, feeling the weight of months of conflict slowly lifting from my shoulders. That evening, after tucking Sophia in, I settled on the couch, a quiet moment finally my own. Is this the end of the battle? Probably not entirely. Denise could still lash out in unpredictable ways. But for now, I'd accomplished what I set out to do. I closed my eyes, letting the hush of the night envelop me. My mind drifted to the future, how I'd rebuild my life, how Sophia deserved the best father I could be. No more illusions. No more manipulations from Denise. In the end, it wasn't about destroying her. It was about saving myself and my child. And though the scars of betrayal still throbbed, I felt a strange peace. My personal vengeance was rooted in truth, and that truth had finally seen the light. The call came just after dawn on a rainy Thursday. My phone buzzed on the bedside table, and I lurched awake, blinking at the gray light filtering through the blinds. Sophia was still asleep in her room, so I answered quietly. It was a nurse from Pine Oak Care Facility, where my sister Michelle had been living for years because of her special needs. "Mr. Clark," the nurse said, voice trembling, "I'm sorry. It's about Michelle. She passed away early this morning." For a moment, I couldn't speak. My heart seemed to freeze, and the nurse's words blurred. Michelle gone? I'd been planning to visit next weekend, to show her pictures of Sophia's T-ball. But time had slipped away. I forced myself to ask questions about the cause, the procedure, anything to anchor my swirling thoughts. The nurse explained that Michelle had passed peacefully in her sleep. A congenital heart complication, the same issue she'd fought her entire life, had finally taken her. I hung up, numb. I stared at the wall, a sense of unreality closing in. Michelle was the gentlest soul I knew, someone who always greeted me with a smile, even if she didn't fully grasp the world's complexities. Now, a yawning emptiness replaced the idea that she'd always be there. A while later, Sophia toddled into my room, rubbing her eyes. "Daddy? You okay?" she asked. I realized tears were streaming down my face. I'd rarely cried since all the chaos with Denise, but this was different. Grief hit me like a wave. I scooped Sophia up, hugging her tight, barely managing to whisper, "We lost Aunt Michelle, sweetheart." She didn't fully understand, just sensed my pain. She wrapped her little arms around my neck, patting my shoulder. "It's okay, Daddy," she murmured, in that innocent tone kids have when they want to fix everything. I spent the rest of the morning contacting the funeral home, letting them guide me through the arrangements. My parents had passed years ago, so the responsibility fell on me alone. Every call felt like a fresh punch to the gut. By mid-afternoon, the stress built to a breaking point. My breath came in short gasps, and I realized I was on the edge of a panic attack. That's when the doorbell rang. Standing there, dressed in a navy blouse and jeans, was Pamela Rogers. Her expression softened at the sight of my face, blotchy from tears and exhaustion. "Jason," she said gently, "I heard about Michelle through a mutual contact at the court. I'm so sorry." I stepped back, letting her in. I didn't realize you'd know so soon," I managed. She hesitated a moment, then quietly closed the door, glancing at Sophia, who was busy coloring on the living room floor. Pamela's eyes flicked over the piles of funeral pamphlets on the coffee table. "I can come back later if—" "No," I said, voice trembling. "Stay? Please." It's hard. I rarely allowed myself to be so vulnerable, but the day had shattered my usual defenses. She nodded, setting her handbag aside. "All right, let me help." There was no courtroom tension in her tone, no lawyerly politeness, just compassion. She gently guided me to the couch, asked about the funeral home details, took notes when I stammered about possible dates for the service. Her calm efficiency was a relief. My mind was a fog, and having someone methodically check items off a to-do list felt like a lifeline. We settled Sophia with a cartoon for a half hour, letting me step into the kitchen to gather my thoughts. Pamela followed, waiting patiently as I braced myself against the counter. "I've been so consumed with the custody battle," I said in a shaky voice. "I postponed visiting Michelle, and now—" Pamela laid a hand on my arm. "You couldn't have known." She paused, searching for words. "Sometimes we get so wrapped up in emergencies we forget time isn't guaranteed." I felt tears threaten again, but managed to keep control. The pain was raw. "Michelle was everything good in my family," I whispered. "She always asked about Sophia. She'd wave her crayons, wanting me to color with her. God, I should have spent more time with her." Pamela nodded, eyes glistening. "You did your best in tough circumstances, Jason. Grief can twist our regrets, but don't punish yourself." Her gentle sincerity almost undid me, but I forced a shaky breath and gave a nod. An hour later, after I made more calls, Pamela stayed to help me figure out a small memorial plan. She offered to contact a local church, letting them know we'd need a modest service. "I can coordinate with them. Give them your number," she said, voice calm. "One less thing for you to handle alone." I swallowed, feeling a lump in my throat. "Thank you," I murmured. I appreciate your kindness. I really do." Her eyes flicked to Sophia, who'd fallen asleep on a cushion. "You're a devoted father, Jason. I can see how deeply you cared for your sister, too." She gently packed up the funeral documents, placing them in a neat stack. "I'll let you rest, but call me if you need anything." Before leaving, she paused, glancing at me like she wanted to say more. Then she gave a small, sad smile, brushed my arm lightly, and stepped out. I stood there in the hush, feeling an unexpected surge of gratitude. The woman who once fought me in court was now the one offering solace when I needed it most. That night, after tucking Sophia into bed, I stared at the quiet hallway. The weight of Michelle's absence pressed down like a physical burden. The phone rang a few times, sympathetic calls from neighbors and a distant cousin. But each conversation felt repetitive, reminding me that Michelle was gone. Finally, I shut my phone off, sank onto my bed, and let the tears come. I cried for the sister I loved and for the regrets I couldn't shake. Yet beneath the heartbreak, I felt a subtle warmth, recalling how Pamela had stepped in without hesitation. She'd seen me at my most vulnerable and hadn't turned away. That mattered in ways I couldn't yet articulate. In the midst of pain, I realized, sometimes the simplest gestures of understanding can light a candle in the darkness. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel utterly alone in my grief. The week after Michelle's funeral passed in a blur. The service was small, just a handful of staff from Pine Oak Care, me, Sophia, and a few acquaintances. Pamela quietly attended too, standing off to one side, offering a supportive nod whenever I looked her way. The eulogy I delivered was halting, but honest, memories of Michelle's bright spirit, her gentle innocence. By the end, I could barely form words. I felt Pamela's hand on my shoulder, steadying me. Once the ceremony ended, people filtered out, giving condolences. Pamela lingered, helping me collect the leftover flowers and cards. She ushered Sophia into a waiting car seat, giving me space to breathe. My chest ached with sadness, but also an odd tenderness for the woman who'd emerged as a quiet pillar of support amid tragedy. In the days following, everyday life resumed, though with a different hue. My tension around Denise had eased somewhat, now that custody was settled for the time being. I was still cautious, but the immediate legal battles had subsided. Sophia asked occasionally about Aunt Michelle, and I gently explained that Aunt Michelle was in heaven or at peace, using words a child might understand. I found unexpected solace in those conversations. Sometimes explaining the simplest truths to a child helps soothe adult grief. Meanwhile, Pamela began stopping by more often, citing little excuses like dropping off groceries or assisting with some leftover funeral paperwork. One afternoon, she offered to babysit Sophia for a couple of hours while I caught up on errands. I hesitated, given our complicated history, but her sincerity won me over. "Thank you," I said, handing her Sophia's backpack of toys and snacks. "She can be shy with new routines, so if she—" Pamela raised a hand, smiling. "I've watched plenty of kids, Jason. Nathan's older now, but I remember toddler days. She'll be fine." When I returned from errands, I found Pamela and Sophia on the living room floor, giggling over crayons and stickers. Nathan was there too, showing Sophia how to draw a flower. The sight made my chest tighten, in a good way. The children's laughter filled the room with warmth, something I'd missed for so long. After I put away groceries, Pamela joined me in the kitchen to brew coffee. She looked relaxed, wearing casual jeans, hair pulled into a loose ponytail. "Sophia's a sweetheart," she remarked. "Nathan's taken a big brother vibe with her." "It's cute." I nodded, smiling. "It is. She's never had an older sibling figure. And it's nice seeing them bond." Then I cleared my throat. "Thanks for helping." Well, guess you can tell. I'm not used to people stepping in." Pamela leaned against the counter. "I know we have a rocky history, Jason, but I've come to realize Denise misled me. My main concern has always been the child's well-being." A pause. "Then there's you. Turns out you're not the villain she painted." Heat rose in my cheeks. "For a while, you had me convinced I was that villain," I teased, my tone softening. "Kidding," I added when I saw her apologetic expression. She exhaled, shoulders sagging in relief. "I really did believe her story at first, that you were controlling, emotionally distant. But after seeing the actual evidence and your devotion to Sophia," she shook her head, "I realized how wrong it was." My chest tightened. This was the first time she'd spoken so openly about the disconnect between Denise's lies and reality. "Well," I said quietly, "I appreciate you admitting that. It means a lot." We sipped our coffee in comfortable silence, the distant sounds of children's laughter drifting from the living room. It felt surreal. Just months ago, we'd been adversaries in court, and now we stood side by side in my kitchen, sharing a quiet moment. Eventually, Pamela sighed. I hope you know I regret some of the tactics I used. I was representing my client, but," she paused, searching for words. "I should have seen the signs. And I'm sorry if I caused you more pain." My stomach fluttered with a strange mix of relief and affection. "Thank you," I murmured. "I can't lie, it was brutal. But you were doing your job. Denise made her choices." Pamela nodded, eyes glistening with sincerity. Then, almost shyly, she touched my hand resting on the counter. "If there's anything I can do to make it up, or to help you move on from all this, I'm here." A quiet thrumming beat in my chest. I gently turned my palm to clasp hers for a moment, electricity flickering in the contact. We held each other's gaze before a burst of giggles erupted from the kids, snapping us back to reality. She pulled her hand away, cheeks pink, and cleared her throat with a small laugh. Late that evening, after Nathan and Pamela left, I pondered the day's events, sipping a glass of water at the kitchen sink. The memory of her hand on mine lingered. My heart felt lighter than it had in weeks, maybe months. Despite the lingering ache of Michelle's loss, there was a new current of hope swirling through me, a sense that not all was bleak. In the quiet hush of night, I allowed myself a small, tentative smile. Less than a week later, tension roared back into my life. It started as a normal Saturday at Greenfield Park, where I was helping Trent coach the youth baseball scrimmage. Sophia and Nathan played in the grass near the benches, occasionally running onto the field to cheer. Pamela had come to watch, sitting a few rows up, exchanging banter with other parents. I was organizing batting rotations when I noticed a familiar figure lurking beyond the chain-link fence, Marcus Grant. He wore a hoodie, hands shoved in the pockets, eyes scanning the field. My gut clenched. Marcus was the same man who'd threatened me at Denise's house. What was he doing here now? Before I could decide, I spotted Denise further down the fence line, leaning against a tree. She appeared disheveled, anxious. My stomach dropped. They're probably up to something. The last time I'd heard from Denise, she'd left a spiteful message about losing her lawyer and wanting to set things right. I braced myself for confrontation. Sure enough, as the scrimmage wound down, Marcus strode onto the field, ignoring the startled looks from parents. Trent rushed over, trying to defuse the situation. "Hey, buddy, we're in the middle of a kid's game. You can't just..." Marcus shoved past him. "Get out of my face. I'm here to talk to Jason." His voice carried a menacing tone. Kids froze, wide-eyed. I hurried forward, waving the children aside. "Marcus," I said, heart thumping. "This isn't the place. There are kids around." He jabbed a finger at my chest. "Don't care. Denise wants to see Sophia. You keep hogging the kid, acting like you're king now." I took a steadying breath. The court sets supervised visits. You know that. If Denise wants to see her, she has channels to go through. Denise stepped closer, her eyes bloodshot, something like desperation twisting her features. "This is ridiculous," she spat. "I'm her mother. No judge can keep me away forever." Anger flared, but I forced my voice to remain controlled. Then handle it legally, Denise. Don't ambush me at a children's ball game. She scoffed, glancing around at the stunned parents and kids. Marcus advanced again, posture threatening. Maybe you need a lesson in letting a mother see her child, he snarled. That's when Buddy, the friendly Labrador that belonged to one of the parents, barked loudly. He'd been lazing in the dugout area, but now sensed the aggression. He trotted over, teeth bared slightly, letting out a low growl at Marcus. Marcus reeled back in surprise, stumbling. A flicker of fear crossed his face. The moment felt surreal, like slow motion. Parents rushed to guide their kids farther away, and Buddy's owner called, "Buddy, it's okay." But the dog remained on alert, positioning himself between Marcus and me. I could see Pamela rushing towards Sophia and Nathan, scooping them away from potential harm. Caught off guard, Marcus's bravado faltered. He glared at Buddy, then at me, spitting out, "You got some nerve, bringing a dog on me?" His voice shook slightly, betraying fear. Tension crackled in the air. I clenched my fists, adrenaline pounding, but forced myself not to escalate. "This is a kid's baseball field," I said, voice cold. "I'm not going to let you start trouble." He cursed under his breath, turning to Denise. "Let's go, this is a waste of time." Denise hesitated, eyes wild, scanning the crowd. She caught sight of Pamela comforting Sophia and Nathan. A flash of bitterness crossed her face. Then she whirled, storming off with Marcus, leaving a trail of shocked silence behind. Trent exhaled, stepping beside me. "Jesus, that could have gone bad." I nodded, body still shaking with residual adrenaline. Some parents glared after Marcus's retreating form, muttering about calling the cops if he came back. I rushed to check on Sophia. She clung to Pamela, wide-eyed, tears trickling. "Is that man going to hurt us, Daddy?" she whispered. My heart twisted. "No, baby girl, you're safe." "Buddy scared him off, huh?" I tried a gentle smile, patting the dog's head. Buddy wagged his tail, as if proud of his protective duty. Pamela eased her grip on Sophia, her face pale. "He's dangerous, Jason," she said quietly. Denise, clearly spiraling. I nodded, glancing around at the unsettled parents. "I'll file another police report if needed. For now, let's just get these kids home safe." She agreed, and we quickly wrapped up the scrimmage, reassuring the team that everything was fine. Later that day, I got a frantic voicemail from Denise's number, her voice cracking, cursing me, saying I made her look bad in public. She warned she'd find another way to get Sophia back. The threat was nonsensical, she had no legal footing. But it rattled me, reminding me that desperation can breed reckless behavior. The next morning, I learned from Manny, still helping from the sidelines, that Denise had tried lodging a complaint with Child Services, claiming I kept Sophia in poor conditions. Manny's contact said the claim was quickly dismissed due to lack of evidence and the existing court rulings. It was a last-gasp attempt at manipulation, apparently. Standing in my living room, phone in hand, I felt a wave of relief. The system recognized the truth. Denise's final trick, her last spiral, had failed. My revenge was never about humiliating her publicly, yet this turn of events underscored her downfall. She was left disgraced, while I continued providing a stable, loving home for Sophia. That evening, Pamela came over for dinner with Nathan. We ate pizza, letting the kids watch a funny cartoon afterward. Over slices of pepperoni, she and I exchanged significant glances, unspoken acknowledgement that we'd weathered another storm courtesy of Denise's chaos. When the night wound down, Pamela pulled me aside in the hallway. "What happened at the field, are you okay?" she asked. Her hand brushed my arm, concern evident in her eyes. "I'm fine physically," I replied softly. "It was scary for the kids, but I'm relieved everyone's safe." She hesitated, then leaned forward, resting her forehead briefly against my shoulder. "I was worried, seeing Marcus charging at you like that, and seeing Denise in that erratic state." She let out a shaky breath. I wrapped a comforting arm around her, just for a moment, steadying her. "We got through it," I murmured. "Thanks to a certain dog's courage, and you making sure the kids were safe." A slight smile curved her lips. "We make a good team, huh?" The soft closeness lingered, a new warmth flickering between us. Then we parted, returning to the kids, finishing the evening with quiet relief that the showdown had ended in our favor. In bed later, I stared at the dark ceiling, replaying the confrontation. Buddy's protective bark, Marcus's defeated expression, Denise's bitter glare. It marked a turning point. I'd faced her last attempt at manipulation, stood tall, and refused to be intimidated. She left the field publicly shamed, while I continued on with a sense of calm triumph. The final showdown was over, and I'd emerged not just victorious, but with renewed clarity about what mattered, Sophia's safety, and the bond one was forging with Pamela. The week after the baseball field incident brought a quiet sense of closure. There were no more surprise visits from Denise or Marcus. The custody schedule stood firm, supervised visits rarely utilized because Denise seemed to avoid them. Word got around the neighborhood about the confrontation, and a subtle wave of sympathy flowed my way. Parents realized how hard I'd fought to protect Sophia from a chaotic situation. During that calmer period, Pamela and I found ourselves talking more often, small daily chats, coordinating schedules for the kids, even making group outings. One sunny afternoon, we took Sophia and Nathan to the local zoo. The children marveled at giraffes and giggled at penguins, while Pamela and I shared a bench in the shade, chatting about everything from future baseball clinics to local weekend festivals. Our conversations slipped into more personal territory, too. She told me about her upbringing, how her father was a stern man who rarely displayed affection, pushing her into law school. I opened up about my army days, the nightmares that occasionally haunted me, and the guilt I still felt over not seeing Michelle more before her passing. Each story felt like laying another brick in a foundation of understanding. The shift in our dynamic was subtle, yet undeniable. We no longer danced around each other with the guarded tension of adversaries turned reluctant allies. Instead, we grew close in a way that felt natural. Two single parents, each shaped by life's bruises, finding solace in shared compassion. One night, after we'd enjoyed a casual dinner at her place, pizza again, since the kids adored it, Pamela walked me and Sophia to the door. Nathan had dozed off on the couch, and Sophia clutched her little backpack, yawning. In the soft porch light, Pamela and I lingered, letting the kids' sleepy chatter wrap around us. She smoothed her hair back, eyes shining with an unspoken emotion. "It's been nice, spending time like this. Feels almost normal," she said. A hint of a laugh escaped her, perhaps recalling how abnormal our beginnings were. I nodded. "Yeah, normal is good." I never thought I'd say that after everything. We both stood there, the hush of night enveloping us. Then, in a gentle move, I leaned closer, searching her expression for any sign of hesitation. She looked back, warmth flooding her gaze. Before I could second-guess, I brushed my lips to hers, a soft, tentative kiss. It wasn't rushed or desperate. It felt like a quiet acknowledgement of the bond we'd formed. When we parted, she rested her forehead against mine, exhaling a trembling breath. "Jason," she whispered. I was worried, maybe I misread. "No," I murmured. "You didn't." My heart hammered, but in a good way, full of a hope I hadn't felt since before the divorce nightmare began. We both smiled, slightly shy, as if stepping onto new ground. Then we said our goodnights, and I carried a sleepy Sophia to the car. Driving home, my mind buzzed with the realization. I'm falling for the woman who once represented my ex-wife. Life's twists and turns, indeed. In the following days, our closeness grew more apparent. We talked about practical challenges, how to ease the kids into the idea that we might become more than friends. But to our relief, Sophia and Nathan seemed to bond effortlessly. They squealed over board games and traded crayons. My nights felt warmer with the knowledge that Pamela cared about me beyond the superficial. She understood my scars, and I understood hers. A couple of weeks passed, and I noticed how unburdened I felt. Without the looming threat of Denise's manipulations, I could breathe. My once-consuming revenge arc had run its course. I'd reclaimed my daughter's safety and exposed Denise's lies. Now, with Michelle's passing, I felt a bittersweet clarity. Life is precious, and I needed to build something meaningful out of the ashes left behind. One evening, as we tucked Sophia and Nathan into a makeshift sleepover in my living room, blankets and pillows everywhere, Pamela and I retreated to the kitchen. The hum of the dishwasher filled the background while we sipped tea. She asked, almost casually, "Have you thought about the future? Like, where you go from here, beyond the immediate?" Her question resonated. Where do I go from here? For so long, my energy had been tied up in divorce battles and custody drama. Now, the horizon lay open. I'd like to keep coaching baseball, for starters, I said slowly. I'm thinking about finishing that college degree I left hanging. Maybe I can find stable work that lets me be there for Sophia. A stable family routine, you know? She smiled softly. Sounds good. And if you need help with schedules, or if you want to trade off watching the kids, I'm here. She set her mug down, resting a hand over mine on the table. The contact sent a comforting thrill through me. We both knew what we were implying. We were gradually merging two families, tentatively, step by step. The next day, she even introduced me to her sister, Claire, who lived 2 towns away. That was new territory for both of us, but it felt surprisingly right. Claire teased Pamela, saying, "Never thought you'd end up with a client's ex. But I can see you're happy." Pamela blushed, confirming what I already felt. We were forging a genuine connection. At times, fleeting guilt surfaced, remnants of old loyalties, the knowledge that Denise had once been Pamela's client. But the courts had spoken, and Denise had burned that bridge herself. Our new journey felt earned, not stolen. One afternoon, sitting on the couch while the kids giggled in Sophia's room, Pamela and I broached the subject that hovered in the background, marriage. Not in a formal sense yet, just the idea of it. She admitted she was cautious, wary of moving too fast. I understood. We had scars. But the possibility hung there, a warm promise that maybe, in time, we could create something stable and lasting. That night, after Pamela left with Nathan, I reflected on how far I'd come, from heartbreak and anger to quiet contentment. The big storms had passed. Denise's manipulations had failed. My sister's death weighed on me daily, but her memory propelled me to cherish what I had. Michelle would want me to be happy. In bed, I closed my eyes, recalling Pamela's soft smile, the way Sophia's eyes lit up around Nathan, how natural it felt to hold Pamela's hand. This stage of my life was new, tender, but real. The man once broken by betrayal had found an unexpected partner who understood both his wounds and his hopes. Tomorrow would bring more small steps, maybe another playdate, another conversation about the future. But for now, I let the warmth of this new bond lull me to sleep. Despite the heartbreaks and trials, I felt a fragile sense of peace. Something told me the worst was behind us, and a kinder horizon awaited. I drifted off, imagining the slow, steady merging of our two families, building a foundation on trust, healing, and, at last, love. When the check arrived in my mailbox, a plain white envelope with the insurance company's return address, I felt my heart do a small flip. I'd known it was coming, of course. The last of my parents' life insurance funds and some restitution from Denise's reckless use of our joint property had finally cleared the court's bureaucracy. But holding the check made it real. All those nights of financial stress, scraping by while paying legal fees, had led to this moment. Sophia was sitting on the living room floor, crayons scattered around her as she worked on a new drawing. She glanced up, curious. "Daddy? You okay?" she asked, noticing how I stood in the doorway, mail in hand, wearing an odd half-smile. I ruffled her hair lightly, stepping into the house. "Yes, sweet pea. Just good news." The hush in my chest wasn't excitement exactly, more like a heavy exhale of relief. I opened the letter, scanning the numbers. It was enough to pay off lingering debts and maybe invest in something stable for our future. Setting the mail aside, I crouched down by Sophia's art supplies. "Watch a drawing?" I asked softly. She grinned wide. "It's you, me, and Aunt Michelle," she said, pointing at 3 stick figures. My heart pinched remembering Michelle's gentle smile. Even in her absence, she remained part of our little family. I swallowed down a surge of emotion, nodding. "That's beautiful, honey." Later that afternoon, I called Trent Donovan, my longtime friend and occasional financial sounding board. He showed up with a battered laptop and a 6-pack of soda, eager to help me map out sensible ways to handle this unexpected windfall. We parked ourselves at my kitchen table, spreadsheets and bank documents spread around us like a puzzle. "All right, man," Trent said, tapping the screen. "You could dump it all into mutual funds, or buy a small property, or even think about a college fund for Sophia. You got options now." I ran a hand through my hair, exhaling. "Feels weird to have actual options," I admitted. For so long, I'd been in survival mode. Child support, legal bills, groceries, repeat. The idea of planning for the future felt like stepping into unknown territory. "Well, you've earned it," Trent said with a grin. "Between the army pay, your parents' leftover estate, and the restitution from the court, you can breathe easy for once." I nodded, scanning the numbers on screen. I recalled the heartbreak of discovering Denise's hidden spending, the scramble to prove I'd faithfully sent funds back home. This check signaled a moral victory too, a tangible sign that I wasn't the deadbeat father she'd tried to paint me as. My legal battles had confirmed the truth, and now the finances reflected it. When Trent and I took a break, I stepped onto my small back porch, letting the mild breeze ruffle my hair. The yard was modest, a patch of grass, a lone tree, but it felt like an oasis. Maybe I'd fix it up for Sophia, a swing set, a sandbox. My mind flicked to Pamela, wondering if her son Nathan would also enjoy those additions. The thought warmed me more than I wanted to admit. That evening, I spent an hour making calls, paying off the last of my personal debts, a credit card that had ballooned during the ugly divorce, a lingering medical bill from a stress-related checkup. Each cleared balance lifted a weight from my shoulders I hadn't realized I was still carrying. By the end, I felt almost giddy. I was free from the financial ghosts that had haunted me since the day Denise filed for divorce. The next morning, I woke early, brewed coffee, and dialed the attorney who'd overseen the restitution portion of my settlement. We went through the final details, confirming that no further claims were pending from Denise's side. "That's correct," he said, his tone polite but businesslike. "The funds are now entirely yours to manage. Ms. Clark has no legal claim." The words echoed in my mind like a bright clarion, no further claims. The tether tying me to Denise's chaos was all but severed. Sophia waddled into the kitchen, yawning. "Can we have pancakes?" she asked, rubbing her eyes with the back of her hand. I laughed softly. "Sure, sweet pea. Pancakes it is." In the middle of whisking batter, my phone buzzed with a text. "Hey, how's it going? Pamela." My pulse did that little flutter again. Since the funeral and the baseball field confrontation, we'd grown closer, forging a steady bond. She hadn't pried into my finances, respecting my space, but maybe it was time to share the good news. "It's going well," I typed back. "Paying off debts, feeling more stable. Thanks for checking in." A few minutes later, her reply came. "Stable is good. You deserve stable, and more." Her warm encouragement triggered a smile that didn't fade for hours. After breakfast, I leafed through some real estate listings, not necessarily to buy right away, but to keep an eye on the market. My current house was small, but cozy. Did I really want to uproot Sophia again so soon? Maybe later, I decided. For now, I'd focus on building an emergency fund and setting up a college account for my daughter. She deserved that security. Trent stopped by again that evening, shaking his head in mock disbelief. "I swear, man, you're turning into Mr. Planner. Who are you, and what happened to the Jason who used to shrug at the concept of budgeting?" I snorted. That guy had the rug pulled out from under him. He learned the hard way. We shared a grin, the easy camaraderie reminding me that my circle of support had grown. Even Manny, my old private investigator, had texted me well wishes, proud of how I'd turned things around. When I finally set the last invoice in the shredder, an old overdue water bill that was now settled, I took a moment to just breathe. The messy chapters of my past financial entanglements with Denise were closed. I let that knowledge wash over me, clearing away the residual bitterness. Freedom from past, I reminded myself, echoing a phrase Lucy Warren, my counselor friend, had once told me. That night, Sophia and I curled up on the couch, reading her favorite picture book about a kitten that finds a new home. She pointed at each page, giggling, content in a quiet way that warmed my heart. Outside, the wind rustled leaves in the yard, but the hush inside felt safe. In bed later, I reflected on the day's milestone. My parents' legacy no longer languished in bureaucratic limbo. It now served as a launching pad for a better life for me and Sophia. Michelle's memory lingered, urging me to use that money wisely, with compassion and foresight. I could almost imagine her gentle smile, encouraging me to keep going. And so I drifted off, lulled by the sense that, for the first time in a long time, my future wasn't a battlefield of debt and legal pitfalls. Instead, it was an open road, wide enough for me and my little girl to walk with our heads held high, and maybe with Pamela and Nathan by our side, if the fates allowed. The accounts were settled. The past was laid to rest. Now it was time to live. A few days after paying off my debts, I found myself in a situation I never imagined. Cooking dinner for four, Sophia, Nathan, Pamela, and me, like we were some sort of half-formed family. The kitchen smelled of roasted chicken, garlic, and a dash of nervous energy. I fiddled with the oven timer as Pamela set the table, rummaging for enough plates in my modest kitchen cabinets. "Think we need extra napkins?" she asked, a mischievous twinkle in her eye. Nathan and Sophia had been known to get messy, especially with anything smothered in sauce. "Probably," I admitted with a laugh. "Kids plus gravy? Guaranteed chaos." Her smile warmed me. For the first time in, well, ever, the vibe in my house felt like a family home. No gloom of custody disputes or leftover anger. Just the clatter of dishes, the kids giggling in the living room over some silly cartoon. It was a striking contrast to the tension and heartbreak I'd endured. The meal itself was simple but full of easy banter. Nathan bragged about a new soccer skill he'd picked up at recess, while Sophia insisted on showing him her cartwheels around the living room. Pamela and I exchanged amused glances, occasionally jumping up to stop them from knocking over a lamp or two. After dinner, we all ended up on the couch, half watching a kid's movie, half talking about everyday life. As the night wore on, the warmth in my chest deepened. Later, after the kids conked out, Sophia curled on one end of the couch, Nathan dozing with a blanket. Pamela and I tiptoed into the kitchen to wash dishes. Steam rose from the sink, and she rolled up her sleeves, revealing a faint scar near her elbow. I realized I'd never asked about it before. She noticed my gaze and gave a small shrug. "Cut myself years ago on a broken window, messing around with an old property case. Nothing dramatic. It's still part of your story," I said softly, rinsing plates. "I want to know all of it." Her cheeks pinked. "All of it, huh? Careful. I might have too many lawyer war stories for you to handle." I teased back with a smirk. "I survived the army. I can handle your war stories." She grinned, flicking a bit of suds at me. I laughed, wiping my cheek. For a moment, we just stood there, eyes locked, the hum of the dishwasher the only background noise. The tension, this time, a sweet kind, made my pulse quicken. We're not just allies anymore, I thought. We're something deeper. She broke the silence. "Jason, about living arrangements," she said carefully. "I mean, I'm at my apartment with Nathan. You have your place. Sometimes we stay over. Sometimes you do. Are we, well, complicating the kids?" I set a dish on the rack, considering. "I've thought about that," I admitted. "It's only been a few weeks since things settled down with Denise. I don't want to rush. But it feels right to be together, you know?" She nodded, eyes flicking toward the living room where the kids slept. "We can move slowly, but maybe we can test the waters, like a few nights a week? See how the kids adjust? If that's not too big a leap for you." My chest warmed. "I'd like that." Then I exhaled, smiling gently. "No pressure, just a step at a time." She leaned in, and our foreheads brushed, a gesture of quiet understanding. In the following days, we tried out a new routine. Sometimes Pamela and Nathan would spend the weekend at my place. Other times, Sophia and I would stay over at hers. The children adapted faster than we did, giggling about sleepover nights, as if it were the best adventure. We made silly team names for chores, had mini dance-offs in the living room, and discovered that combining two sets of toys in one place usually ended in delightful chaos. Amid these daily joys, I also revisited an old dream, finishing college. I'd left school abruptly after my army stint, figuring I'd find a different path. But the last few months taught me the value of stable, fulfilling work, something that let me be present for Sophia, yet also used my skills. One night, after the kids dozed off, I opened an online form from the local community college, scanning degree options in education or social work. Pamela noticed, peeking over my shoulder. "You'd be great at special ed," she murmured. "You're patient, especially with kids who need extra care. And you've shown so much compassion." Her words struck me. "You think so?" She nodded earnestly. "Absolutely. You help those baseball kids, your sister. You've got that gentle persistence." A warmth of pride and humility coursed through me. I guess I never considered it in detail. But maybe it's time. Our conversation meandered to the concept of dreams. Hers, mine, the kids. She admitted to once wanting to open a small, family-friendly law practice that specialized in child advocacy rather than ugly divorces. The idea of a shared life, each pursuing dreams, felt unbelievably wholesome after all the turmoil. But we also had quiet nights of raw honesty. One evening, I admitted I still sometimes jerk awake from nightmares about losing Sophia. The custody battle had etched a deep fear in me. Pamela listened without judgment, nestling closer, reassuring me that the ghosts of old anxieties would fade in time. We didn't need big solutions, just daily trust. One instance of near-explicit awkwardness came when the kids almost walked in on us kissing in my bedroom. We heard giggles in the hallway, jumped apart, and then tried to look casual as the door cracked open. Nothing more than a comedic close call, but we recognized that, yes, we had to set boundaries. We wanted to keep the household environment comfortable, especially for Sophia and Nathan. So, we locked the door next time we needed a private moment. Or we simply opted for affectionate cuddles in the living room, with the kids well within sight, so there'd be no surprises. Between all these day-to-day developments, a persistent gratitude bloomed. I'd never thought life could hold so much laughter. Even the simplest chores, grocery runs, cleaning up spills, took on a gentle warmth with Pamela at my side, or with the kids goofing off together. The house felt less like a bachelor's cramped hideout, and more like a budding family home. Some nights, I'd quietly thank the memory of Michelle for nudging me to embrace life again. Without her passing, I might have continued in old patterns, weighed down by bitterness. Now, though, I woke each morning wanting to make each day count. For Sophia, for myself, and for the woman who was becoming essential to both of us. Denise's betrayal once consumed my every breath, fueling rage and heartbreak. But in the presence of new love and daily laughter, that betrayal lost its sting. It had set me on this path, ironically, a path leading to something far better than I could have imagined. Amid the bustle of daily life, I realized I needed a genuine break, something beyond the occasional day off. So, when Pamela suggested a short family getaway, I jumped at the idea. We decided on a cozy lakeside cabin just an hour's drive from home, tucked away in a small state park. Nothing extravagant, just a chance to unplug from errands, phone calls, and old ghosts. We arrived one late afternoon, Nathan and Sophia squealing with excitement over the simple joys, a wooden deck overlooking the water, ducks paddling by, and a small fire pit for roasting marshmallows. The cabin's interior was modest, a couple of bedrooms, a small kitchenette. But it carried the hush of nature, with sunbeams filtering through pine trees. After unpacking, we strolled around the lakeshore. The kids dashed ahead, giggling whenever they spotted a frog or a fish near the bank. Pamela and I walked side by side, fingers loosely intertwined, soaking in the calm. The air smelled of pine needles and damp earth, a refreshing contrast to our usual suburban routines. By sunset, we gathered around the fire pit. I coaxed small flames from the dried kindling, while Pamela fetched marshmallows and chocolate bars from the cabin. The kids huddled close, enthralled by the crackling fire and the idea of sugary treats. We roasted marshmallows, sharing laughter over sticky fingers and dropping half-melted chocolate on the grass. At some point, the kids tired themselves out chasing fireflies and retreated inside, dozing off in bunk beds. That left Pamela and me under a canopy of stars, the fire's glow dancing across our faces. We whispered about how far we'd come, about the sense of peace that enveloped us here, far from old drama. It's weird, Pamela mused softly, leaning her head on my shoulder. I used to crave big vacations, fancy resorts, wanting to escape my life. Now, a small cabin with you and the kids is enough to make me happier than I've ever been. I kissed the top of her head. Me too, I admitted. It's the quiet moments that matter, not the fancy stuff. She exhaled, content. The flicker of the fire played across her features, reminding me of how natural we'd become. Not that we never argued. Like any pair, we had small spats over schedules or the kids bickering. But those fights ended in laughter or compromise. The slow, gentle rhythms of daily life knitted us closer. Next morning, I woke at dawn to the sound of gentle waves lapping the shore. I slipped outside, finding the lake covered in a thin mist, the sky tinted peach. Pamela joined me minutes later, hugging a shawl around her shoulders. We didn't speak much, just watched the sunrise paint the water gold. My heart felt so full, remembering how not long ago, a A sunrise meant bracing for another round of legal battles or bitterness. Now, it simply meant a fresh day of possibilities. Once the kids woke, we turned the morning into a pancake feast. Nathan insisted on flipping them, causing mild chaos and a few mishaps, but we all laughed. After breakfast, we ventured onto a short hiking trail that looped around the lake's edge. Sophia, perched on a large rock at one point, proudly announced she was queen of the lake, making us bow dramatically. Moments like that reminded me of the light-hearted family dynamic we'd built, one not weighed down by old resentments. In the afternoon, we rented a small paddle boat. Pamela and I took turns pedaling, while Sophia and Nathan squealed about the possibility of seeing turtles or lake monsters. Our laughter echoed across the water. There was a hush in the distance, nature's quiet hush, matched by the hush in my own mind. The swirl of revenge and heartbreak no longer consumed me. I felt an inner peace that allowed me to focus on the present, on the childlike glee in front of me. That evening, as we grilled hot dogs outside the cabin, I checked my phone, though signal was spotty. A single message from Lucy Warren, my counselor friend. Hope the getaway is healing. Remember, you deserve happiness. I smiled, tucking the phone away. She was right. This trip wasn't about running from the past, but embracing the gifts the present offered. Denise's presence was a faint echo at best. I'd heard she was still around town, living with Marcus or drifting. I'd only had minimal contact, some brief text acknowledging a missed supervised visit. And while a part of me pitied her, I no longer felt anger or fear. She had chosen her path, and I had chosen mine. That night, after the kids fell asleep, Pamela and I stood on the dock, the lake shimmering under a nearly full moon. A soft breeze ruffled her hair, carrying a scent of pine. We talked about the future in quieter, more honest terms than ever before, my leaning toward finishing a special education degree, her hopes of pivoting her legal career toward child advocacy. We teased about the possibility of a bigger home someday, one that could hold both kids comfortably. She rested her hands on my shoulders, meeting my eyes in the moonlight. Seeing you this calm, it's good, she said softly. Remember how frantic everything was when we first met? A wry grin curved my lips. You mean when you hammered me in court? She laughed lightly, her breath fogging in the cool night air. Yes, that. Strange how life weaves us together in unexpected ways. My arms encircled her waist, pulling her close. The hush of the lake felt like a backdrop to something profound, an affirmation that the storms of the past had given way to quiet moments of genuine love. We stayed like that a while. No big pronouncements, just a shared sense of peace. When at last we retreated indoors, I felt that sense of renewal Lucy had mentioned. We hadn't fixed every scar or banished every memory of betrayal, but my perspective had shifted. The tension and pain of revenge no longer consumed me. It simply lingered as a reminder of how much I valued this new life. And for the first time in forever, I could imagine a future that wasn't overshadowed by bitterness, but rather illuminated by love, laughter, and the simple joy of two families merging into one. We returned from the lake trip with relaxed spirits, the kids chattering about fish sightings and roasted marshmallows. It wasn't a grand vacation, but it was exactly what we needed. Over the next few days, I returned to my usual routine, coaching youth baseball part-time, sorting out future college plans, and couldn't shake a constant undertow of excitement. I wanted to express my gratitude and deeper commitment to Pamela in a meaningful way. Do something special, Trent suggested when I confided in him. Doesn't have to be a big flash. Just make it personal. That clicked. I didn't want a flashy spectacle. I wanted to convey how she'd changed my life. So I hatched a modest plan. I invited Pamela, Nathan, and a few close friends to a small gathering at a local park, a familiar place near the baseball field where I'd once battled Denise's accusations. The excuse was to celebrate summer's end, a casual outdoor party. She didn't suspect anything more, cheerfully offering to bring fruit salad while I handled grilled burgers. The evening arrived warm and breezy. Families milled about under a pavilion, kids running around with water balloons. A few of my army buddies came, plus some baseball families who'd stuck by me. Pamela looked radiant in a simple sundress, Nathan at her side. Sophia clung to me, grinning whenever we locked eyes in our little secret. I told her I had a surprise for Mommy Pamela, as she sometimes called her, a name that warmed my heart. As the sun sank, Painting the sky orange, I asked everyone to gather. Thanks for coming, I began, voice a bit shaky. This has been a year of big changes for me and Sophia. We wouldn't be here without your support. Scanning the crowd, I spotted Pamela's questioning expression, her eyes filled with warmth. I continued, nerves rattling. There's someone here who stepped into my life at the darkest time. We started on opposite sides, but she opened my eyes to second chances. For me, for Sophia, for us. Pamela Rogers, you've given me more than you can know. My gaze locked on hers. Her cheeks flushed, tears brightening her eyes. I knelt on the grass, tugging a small box from my pocket. There was no huge diamond or elaborate flourish, just a humble ring that held a symbolic gemstone, reflecting quiet resilience. The crowd murmured, voices hushed in anticipation. Pamela, I said softly, will you share the rest of your life with me? Marry me, and continue building this family we've started? My heartbeat roared in my ears. For a split second, the hush felt like an eternity. She pressed a hand to her mouth, tears spilling as she nodded vigorously. Yes, she managed, voice trembling. Yes, Jason, absolutely. Applause erupted around us, and I stood, sliding the ring onto her finger as Sophia and Nathan squealed in excitement. She threw her arms around me, laughter spilling out. It was a moment of pure joy, overshadowing any memory of court battles or betrayals. I held her tight, exhaling relief and gratitude. The onlookers cheered, Trent Wolfe whistled, Manny clapped boisterously. That was it. Simple, heartfelt, no illusions. We spent the rest of the evening in a daze of happiness. Families congratulated us, kids running wild with leftover water balloons. Denise's name scarcely crossed my mind, except as a distant echo reminding me how drastically life had shifted. Now, instead of heartbreak, I held hope in my hands. In the gentle twilight, Pamela and I exchanged glances that said everything. We choose each other, flaws and all. Later, after most guests had left, Pamela and I strolled down a short path lined with wildflowers, the kids racing ahead with small flashlights. She admired the ring by the glow of a nearby lamp post, her voice soft. It's perfect, Jason. Not flashy or huge, just right. I threaded my fingers through hers. Like us, I teased. We're not flashy, just right. She leaned her head against my shoulder. I never saw this coming. Us, I mean. But I can't imagine going back. I squeezed her hand, swallowing emotion. You changed my life, I murmured. You helped me see beyond the pain. I want to spend every day paying that kindness forward. Her eyes shone with tears again, but her smile was steady. I feel the same, she whispered. When we rejoined the kids, Nathan and Sophia demanded hugs, exclaiming they wanted to tell the whole world they were going to be siblings. We laughed, reminding them it wasn't official just yet, but soon enough. My heart nearly burst at their excitement. By the time we packed up the last of the folding chairs and leftover fruit salad, the park was dark except for a few lampposts. In the hush, we parted ways to drive home. Pamela had to drop Nathan off at a friend's house early the next morning, while I had an early shift at the baseball field for a kid's workshop. We'd reconvene for dinner, newly engaged, forging ahead with plans we'd shaped together. That night, after settling Sophia, I lingered on the couch, letting the day's events wash over me. I replayed Pamela's teary-eyed nod, the burst of applause, how natural it felt to call her mine. I recalled my earlier vow, quietly thanking Michelle for guiding me to embrace love again. The past year had tested me in every way: trust, fatherhood, patience, heartbreak. Yet the final payoff was a life anchored in honest connection, free from bitterness. The ring box, now empty, rested on the coffee table, a small testament to fresh starts. My phone buzzed softly. A text from Pamela. Still can't believe we're engaged. Love you, fiancé. My lips curved into a broad grin. I typed back, me neither. Love you too. Then I stood, turning off the lights, ready for bed with a buoyant heart. Slipping under the covers, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. The cunning planning, the heartbreak, the legal battles, none of it defined me anymore. They were chapters that led to this moment of quiet triumph, forging a new family from the rubble. As sleep tugged at my eyelids, I savored the knowledge that tomorrow would dawn with a promise I'd never dared to hope for. A future built on redemption, laughter, and the enduring love I found in the most unlikely place. I woke early, as usual, to the faint chirping of birds outside my window. The day felt oddly significant, like the start of a new chapter, even though I had no major event scheduled. I pulled on a t-shirt and jeans, stepping into the kitchen to find Sophia already munching cereal. She beamed at me, milk mustache on her upper lip. "Morning, Daddy," she chirped. "I'm drawing Buddy later. For the wedding party." She tapped a small notepad where she'd started doodling the Labrador's big paws and happy grin. I smiled, heart warmed by the thought that Buddy, our friend's dog and a minor hero in our story, would be part of the ceremony. "Sounds good, sweet pea," I said, pouring coffee. My mind drifted to the next big step in my life, re-enrolling in college for a special education degree. A few days ago, I'd submitted final paperwork. The official acceptance email arrived last night. I was in. When Pamela emerged from the spare room, still in pajamas, she greeted us with a sleepy smile. "Hey," she murmured, hugging Sophia, then leaning over to kiss my cheek. "Big day." I shrugged lightly. "Kinda. I'm heading to the community college after lunch to finalize my course schedule. You want me to pick up anything on my way back?" Her eyes lit up. "I'd love that. And maybe we can celebrate tonight." She grabbed an apple, looking proud as if she were cheering me on silently. I took a moment to reflect on how far we'd come, from a fractured single dad to an engaged father finishing his education. It felt surreal, but I never lost sight of the small joys. Moments like seeing Sophia talk about Buddy's role at the wedding or Pamela's sleepy morning grin. By mid-morning, I was on my way to the community college. The campus bustled with students lugging textbooks, chatting about classes. Walking through the corridors, I couldn't help feeling a bit older than some fresh-faced undergrads, but it didn't bother me. My mission was clear: to become qualified in special education so I could guide kids who faced learning challenges, kids like my sister Michelle once was. A new counselor named Ms. Flores greeted me in her cramped office, a potted fern drooping in the corner. She skimmed my transcript, then nodded. "You're nearly halfway to a bachelor's. We can transfer your Army credits and previous courses. You might finish in 2 years if you push a bit." A tingle of excitement ran through me. 2 years. That's not bad, I said. "Let's do it." We worked out a schedule, a mix of online classes and some in-person sessions so I could still coach youth baseball. I scribbled notes, imagining how I'd juggle fatherhood, wedding planning, and coursework. But instead of dread, I felt a quiet thrill. My father had once told me that purposeful work is part of healing. Maybe he was right. After signing the final forms, I strolled back to my truck, passing a bulletin board covered with flyers, tutoring programs, volunteer gigs, sports clubs. One flyer caught my eye. "Community Youth Mentorship, join us." I took a photo of it on my phone, thinking about how coaching kids was something I could expand. Maybe I could link it with my degree work. As I drove home, my mind brimmed with possibilities. I wasn't just drifting anymore, I had direction. This was new territory, stability built on my own terms, not overshadowed by heartbreak or revenge. The hush in my chest felt good, a promise that the future could be shaped by growth instead of anger. Back home, I found Trent in the driveway, unloading baseball gear from his trunk. "Hey man," he greeted. "Wanted to catch you. Got word from the City Rec Center. They need a youth sports coordinator. It's part-time, but pays decently. Could pair well with your school schedule." My eyebrows rose. "Seriously? That's perfect timing." He smirked. "Guess the world's aligning for you, buddy." He handed me a small printout with details. My stomach flipped in excitement. I imagined organizing not just baseball, but also possibly soccer or basketball for local kids. Another stepping stone toward that community respect I once never dreamed I'd earn. Inside, Pamela was relaxing on the couch, sorting through wedding to-do lists. She glanced up, her expression brightening as I explained the rec center opportunity. "That's wonderful, Jason," she said. "Sounds like it plays to your strengths, leading kids, teaching them teamwork." Sophia piped in from the kitchen. "Daddy, can I come watch you coach those kids, too? I'll show them my cartwheels." We all laughed, sharing a light-hearted moment. But underneath the laughter, I sensed we were weaving a new normal. Me building a career in youth sports and education, Pamela shifting her legal focus to child advocacy, the kids thriving in a stable home. The tension of the past had receded, leaving behind a purposeful calm. That night, after dinner, Pamela and I settled on the porch. The warm twilight surrounded us, and the faint sound of crickets drifted from the yard. We talked about logistics, my upcoming college orientation, her ongoing pivot toward representing kids in foster care, the wedding we planned at the local park. Our lives felt busy but aligned in a way I never thought possible. "You sure you're up for going back to student life?" she teased, lacing her fingers through mine. I chuckled. "I might be the oldest in the class, but I won't let that stop me." She leaned her head on my shoulder, voice soft. "You'll be amazing, Jason. You have a gift for empathizing with kids who need support. Michelle would be so proud." A pang of wistful gratitude throbbed in my chest. Yeah, I hope so. Everything I do now feels like a way to honor her memory, turning the pain into something positive. A comfortable silence settled as we watched fireflies blink in the yard. The hush in my mind was no longer the hush of dread or heartbreak. It was a hush of acceptance, of readiness for whatever came next. My revenge arc was long over, replaced by a more satisfying story of growth and new purpose. I pressed a kiss to Pamela's forehead, feeling the warmth of her presence. "Ready for tomorrow?" I asked, referencing her big meeting with a local nonprofit about child advocacy. She nodded, eyes reflecting quiet determination. "Nervous, but excited. Like you said, new directions, right?" "Exactly," I murmured, giving her hand a squeeze. We lingered there, letting the crickets serenade us under the stars. In that moment, I felt my spirit uplifted, no longer weighed down by the bitterness that once consumed me. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, orientation for me, a big meeting for Pamela, but we'd face them together. This is the bright horizon, I thought, the life we forged after all the battles and heartbreak. And it felt undeniably good. The day of our wedding dawned bright and clear, the late spring sky a brilliant blue. We had chosen the very park where I'd first coached the youth baseball team, where so many pivotal moments had unfolded. Now, it served as the backdrop for a celebration that once seemed impossible. Friends and family gathered under a decorated gazebo near the outfield. White ribbons fluttered from the posts, and folding chairs lined a small grassy aisle. I caught sight of Buddy, our loyal, floppy-eared Labrador friend, sitting obediently in the front row, wearing a tiny floral collar. Sophia, in a cute lilac dress, fussed over him, making sure he didn't wander off. Trent stood beside me, wearing a simple dress shirt and tie. He elbowed me, grinning. "Nervous, man? You look like you're about to jump out of your own skin." I released a breath, adjusting my jacket. "A little," I admitted, "but more excited than anything. Feels surreal." He clapped my shoulder. "You got this. I've never seen you more sure of anything." That reassurance helped center me. Memories of my rocky past flickered by, my disastrous first marriage, the court battles, the heartbreak. But now I was forging a new life, with a woman who understood my scars and loved me anyway. Soft acoustic guitar music started playing, courtesy of one of Pamela's old friends, strumming gentle chords. Guests settled in, chatting quietly, waiting for the bride's entrance. I spotted Manny, my old private investigator, near the back, giving me a thumbs up. Lucy Warren, my counselor friend, offered a warm smile. My circle had grown, shaped by adversity and friendship. Suddenly, the notes changed, and everyone hushed. Pamela appeared at the far edge of the lawn, escorted by her sister Claire. My breath caught. Pamela wore a simple, flowing white dress that brushed the grass, her hair swept up in a loose braid woven with tiny flowers. She glowed with a calm, radiant joy. No fancy frills, just authenticity. Nathan walked ahead, scattering rose petals with a big grin, while Sophia toddled behind him, giggling as she tried not to trip in her shoes. With each step Pamela took down the aisle, my heart pounded. A hush fell over the gazebo area, as if the world itself paused to witness. She reached me, her eyes shining, and I extended a trembling hand. She took it, inhaling unsteadily, and we both let out a soft laugh, nerves and happiness intertwining. A local officiant stood before us, guiding the short ceremony. We kept it intimate. No long speeches, just honest vows we wrote ourselves. When it was my turn, I cleared my throat, voice shaky but resolute. "Pamela, I once thought my life was ruined by betrayal and heartbreak. You showed me a second chance. You taught me compassion can follow conflict, that love can bloom after devastation. I vow to stand by you, support you, and build a family rooted in trust. Her eyes brimmed with tears. She recited her vows with quiet conviction, speaking of how I'd changed her perspective on duty, honesty, and hope. She thanked me for teaching her that true loyalty goes beyond client and lawyer relationships. It becomes a bond of the soul. My chest felt tight, overwhelmed by emotion. Then came the ring exchange. Sophia handed me a small satin pillow, beaming, while Nathan solemnly handed one to Pamela. We slid simple bands onto each other's fingers, sealing our commitment. The officiant pronounced us husband and wife, and a gentle cheer arose. I leaned in, pressing a tender kiss to Pamela's lips, joy flooding me. The hush that once echoed heartbreak now echoed triumph. Buddy let out an excited bark, causing laughter to ripple through the guests. The officiant smiled, stepping aside so we could walk down the aisle together. As we moved, I noticed tears in Lucy's eyes, Trent wiping away a proud grin, Manny clapping. Everyone had witnessed my darkest hours, and now they saw me step into a future brimming with light. We gathered for a small reception near the baseball diamond. Folding tables draped with white cloths held trays of simple finger foods. A homemade cake sat in the center. My friend's wife had baked it. The kids dashed around, popping balloons, squealing whenever Buddy trotted after them. The atmosphere crackled with the kind of warmth only good company can bring. Pamela and I circulated, thanking guests, receiving heartfelt congratulations. At one point, we paused at the chain-link fence overlooking the infield, where so many crucial moments once happened. She laced her fingers through mine, her wedding ring glinting in the sun. We exchanged a private smile, remembering how we first met in an adversarial arena, how we'd grown from mistrust to devotion. Before long, Trent tapped a spoon against a glass, calling for attention. He made a short toast. Jason and Pamela, seeing you two stand here reminds me that hope can rise from the toughest battles. May your union be filled with love, laughter, and a future you both deserve. Applause followed, and tears threatened at the corners of my eyes. With the formalities done, we let the kids start a friendly pickup game of baseball. Sophia insisted on batting first, determined to show off her newly honed swing. Guests relaxed, cheering on the improvised teams. I stood at the sidelines with my new wife, her arm looped around mine, content in the knowledge that we'd faced our demons and emerged stronger. Eventually, the sun lowered in the sky, painting the field in amber light. People trickled out, hugging us goodbye. Manny jokingly reminded me to stay out of trouble so he wouldn't have to investigate me again. Lucy whispered well wishes, her eyes shining with pride. Trent gave me a bear hug, promising to keep the baseball coaching torch alive whenever I got swamped with school. When only a few close friends and family remained, Pamela and I walked hand in hand toward the dugout. Nathan and Sophia joined us, giggling. We sat on the wooden bench, gazing at the empty diamond. We did it, Pamela murmured, leaning her head on my shoulder. We did, I agreed softly, the hush in my chest now one of deep contentment. From enemies to soulmates in the unlikeliest way. A breeze rustled the trees, carrying the echoes of children's laughter and distant applause. The ring on my finger felt natural, as if it had always belonged there. Sophia and Nathan joked about a family honeymoon, which turned into a debate about going to a theme park or a beach. We laughed, giving them playful side glances, grateful that the biggest conflicts of our lives were behind us. Nightfall approached, and we finally gathered our things, returning to the real world. But we left that ball field changed, no longer weighed down by old grudges or heartbreak. Our wedding day had been simple, heartfelt, a testament to the resilience we'd discovered. We're a family now, I thought, guiding them back toward the car. And the rest of the world had better be ready. Weeks after the wedding, life settled into a harmonious routine. I began orientation for my special education program, balancing coursework with part-time hours at the youth sports coordinator job. Pamela took on more child advocacy cases, championing kids caught in messy legal situations. Our home bustled with new energy, 2 kids, 2 parents, and a dog that might as well be ours. The hush from my old grief had transformed into the busy noise of a thriving household. One evening, while washing dishes after dinner, I got an unexpected phone call from a local police officer, someone I recognized from earlier confrontations involving Denise. My stomach tightened, old reflexes stirring. Yes, officer. I said warily. He cleared his throat. Mr. Clark, I'm calling because Ms. Denise Clark was picked up last night for public intoxication. She listed you as her emergency contact. We understand your custody arrangement. Just wanted to inform you she's being processed. She might face additional charges if anything else surfaces. I paused, heart twisting. Denise, once again in trouble, though this time my reaction wasn't fear or anger. It was a weary sadness. Thank you for letting me know, I said quietly. Is she all right? As far as we can tell, he replied. We'll direct her to a local rehab program if she's willing. I hung up, staring at the suds on my hands. Part of me felt pity. The woman I'd once loved had fallen so far. Yet I also felt a sense of distance, no longer pulled into her chaos. She's on her own path, I reminded myself. Pamela noticed my expression when I returned to the living room. Everything okay? She asked softly, setting aside her laptop. I explained the call. Her brows creased in concern. Are you all right? She asked, resting a hand on my arm. I let out a slow breath. Yeah, I guess I'm sad for her, but not surprised. She never sought real help. She pushed everyone away. Pamela nodded, eyes reflecting compassion. We both understood how addiction or destructive habits can spiral if left unchecked. You've done all you can, she said gently. There's no reason to drown in guilt. I squeezed her hand, appreciating that she didn't push me to involve myself further. The courts had settled custody, and Denise's involvement with Sophia was sporadic. If her new spiral led her to legal trouble, that was her battle. My priority was to keep Sophia safe. A few days later, Lucy Warren, my counselor friend, mentioned she'd seen Denise at a local clinic, presumably mandated for evaluation. She looked rough, Lucy confided softly. She might face more serious charges if she doesn't comply with treatment. I sighed, feeling a faint stab of sadness. I wish she'd found a better path. But I can't fix her choices. Lucy nodded. She'd guided me through letting go of guilt or a savior complex. We concluded that as long as Sophia remained unaffected, it wasn't my role to intervene. One afternoon, I found a note in my mailbox, sloppy handwriting, smelling faintly of cheap liquor. It read, "You won. Don't pretend you didn't." No signature, but obviously from Denise. Rather than anger me, it just felt hollow. We're past that, I thought, tucking the note into a folder I kept for documentation. My revenge had never been about winning in the sense she implied. I'd moved on, building a stable life. She was the one stuck in old resentments. The next week, Manny reached out with a short update. He still had contacts in local law enforcement. Heard Denise might take a plea deal, he reported. Could lead to rehab or probation. I thanked him for the info, though my reaction was muted. My life no longer revolved around her fate. One evening, as Pamela and I sat on our porch swing, kids playing in the yard, we spoke of Denise. Do you feel any regret? Pamela asked softly. Do you wish things had gone differently so Sophia would have a healthier mother? I gazed at the horizon, the sky turning pastel pink. Yes, I do wish that. For Sophia's sake. But Denise made her choices. I exhaled, recalling old heartbreak. I pity her, but I can't regret exposing her lies or protecting our daughter. It had to be done. Pamela's hand found mine. I understand. The point is, you did the right thing, and now Sophia's safe. If Denise ever changes, maybe down the line there's room for a healthier relationship. I nodded, letting the hush settle in. The difference was, I no longer lay awake at night obsessing over Denise's next move or feeling haunted by her betrayal. I felt pity, but no regret. A moral reflection that sometimes the price of betrayal is harsh. She faced her consequences, while I walked forward with clear conscience. On a cooler Saturday morning, I took Sophia to the local farmer's market. We strolled among stalls of fresh produce, sampling peaches and berries. As we turned a corner, I spotted a figure that momentarily froze me. Someone with cropped hair and a tired posture. For a second, I thought it was Denise, but it was just a stranger. My heart still jumped, a reflex. I breathed out, relieved. Old wounds take time to fully heal. Later that day, we played catch in the backyard. Sophia laughed, missing an easy toss, and the ball rolled under a bush. I jogged to retrieve it, a wave of gratitude washing over me. We were free to enjoy everyday moments, unshackled from drama. The hush in my mind was calm acceptance, not dread. That night, sitting at the kitchen table, I penned a short journal entry. Denise, spiraling. I pity her, but can't turn back. This is her path now. I choose peace. For me, for Sophia. Pamela, noticing me writing, leaned over and gave my shoulder a reassuring squeeze. Everything all right? She asked again. I placed the pen down. Yes, I replied, smiling. Just putting thoughts to paper. She nodded, understanding that I needed no further conversation about Denise. I had closure. The epilogue of her life was hers to write, and I only hoped she'd eventually find help. Meanwhile, I had a family to cherish and a future to build. In a quiet corner of my heart, I wished Denise no ill will, just the clarity to see her own mistakes and possibly find redemption. No regrets. I reminded myself, letting that mantra guide me as I turned off the lights and joined Pamela on the couch for a peaceful evening, far removed from the shadows of betrayal. Rain pattered softly on the windows, a gentle soundtrack to my introspective mood. I stood at the sliding door, gazing into the yard where droplets sparkled on the grass. In the distance, I could see Buddy trotting around, unbothered by the drizzle, tail wagging happily at nothing in particular. Pamela was across the room, coaxing Nathan and Sophia into finishing their homework. She offered gentle encouragement. Almost done, guys. Then you can watch your cartoon. The scene felt so ordinary, yet brimming with the promise I'd once thought impossible. As for me, I was finalizing a paper for my special education class, a reflective essay about methods for engaging kids with learning disabilities. Every sentence I wrote felt like a tribute to Michelle, channeling her memory into constructive insight. Whenever I typed inclusion, I thought of how she would have thrived if she'd had more patient, understanding teachers. This path I was on meant I could be that patient, understanding figure for other kids. I finished typing, saved the document, and closed my laptop with a quiet sense of achievement. The hush in my chest was no longer dread or heartbreak, but a calm, steady confidence in the future. It hit me how different life was from that day when I returned from the army, only to discover Denise's betrayals. If only I could tell that old version of me, hang on, better days are coming. Pamela's voice broke my reverie. Hey, she called softly, I think they're done. Want to join us for a little movie night? Or you still got classwork? I smiled. I'm done. Let's do it. We arranged cushions on the living room rug, our version of a cozy nest, and popped a bowl of popcorn. The kids giggled, each hugging a throw pillow. Buddy flopped down on the floor near us, occasionally glancing for dropped popcorn kernels. As the movie started, my gaze lingered on this makeshift family. The hush I felt was one of contentment. I was exactly where I needed to be, with exactly the people I needed. The theme of betrayal and revenge that once loomed so large in my life had faded, replaced by love, routine, and forward-looking hope. Eventually, the kids fell asleep mid-movie. Pamela and I carried them to their rooms. After tucking them in, we ended up on the couch again, the faint glow of the TV casting soft shadows. My arm curved around her shoulders, and she rested against me. How does it feel to be half a semester into your program? Pamela asked, voice hushed. I exhaled, smiling. Challenging, but good. I've got so many ideas on how to help kids. It's exciting, not draining like my old post-divorce stress. And you? How's your shift into child advocacy going? She paused, eyes reflecting thoughtful pride. It's meaningful. Hard sometimes, seeing neglected kids. But I'm making a real difference. Feels like I'm doing what I was meant to do. We sat quietly for a moment, letting those reflections settle. Then I murmured, you know, sometimes I recall the darkest nights, right after Denise blindsided me. I thought I'd never trust anyone again. But now, here we are, building a life that's so full. She turned to meet my gaze. You overcame every obstacle with grace. That's what drew me in. Even when you were angry, you never lost your moral compass. Her voice wavered slightly, emotion shining in her eyes. Tenderly, I brushed a lock of hair from her face, my heart surging with affection. Couldn't have done it without you, Pamela. You gave me reason to hope again. We shared a gentle kiss, the hush in my chest transforming into warmth. It was a moment that echoed the entire arc of our story, pain replaced by renewal. Leaning back, we turned off the TV and let the room dim. Outside, the rain continued, a soothing patter. I glanced at the framed photos on the mantel. Sophia grinning at her last birthday, Nathan holding a trophy from baseball camp, the two of us beaming on our wedding day, Buddy's wagging silhouette in the background. So much had shifted, Yet it all felt natural, as if each step led us here. My father's old saying came to mind. Pain carves out space in you for deeper joy. I finally understood it. The betrayals and heartbreak had once hollowed me, but now that space brimmed with love, family, and purpose. Eventually, the rain tapered off, leaving a quiet hush. Pamela yawned, leaning into me. We should probably head to bed soon. Another early morning for us, right? You've got class. I've got a hearing for a foster child case. I kissed her temple, and I couldn't ask for a better daily grind. We rose, shutting off the lights, checking on the kids one last time. Sophia was curled around a stuffed dinosaur. Nathan sprawled out, snoring lightly. Buddy lifted his head, tail thumping, then dozed off again. I locked the doors, a simple gesture symbolizing the security we now had. In bed, I stared at the dark ceiling, letting my mind wander. This is my life now, I thought, not overshadowed by Denise's betrayal or the court's drama. I still carried lessons from those trials. Lessons about resilience, about how easily trust can be broken, and how carefully it must be rebuilt. But the bitterness had drained away, replaced by an unwavering commitment to this new, blended family. Michelle's memory flickered through me, gentle and comforting. I silently thanked her for inspiring me to follow a path that helped kids with special needs. It felt like honoring her spirit each time I studied or coached a child who needed extra patience. That sense of purpose was priceless. I drifted toward sleep, recalling the vow I'd made when I proposed to Pamela, that I'd dedicate each day to growing in love and empathy, forsaking old grudges. We've come so far, I whispered internally, letting a soft smile curve my lips. The future was no longer a question of survival. It was a promise of hope. As I sank into slumber, I heard the faint sigh of wind outside, the quiet comfort of a home at peace. My final thought was a wave of gratitude, for the storms that taught me perseverance, for the hush that now carried contentment, and for the unwavering love that emerged from the ruins of betrayal. Tomorrow, I'd awake to the new day's challenges, but with Pamela by my side and Sophia and Nathan forging sibling bonds, it all felt